5-year-old Lily Winters stood frozen in the kindergarten gymnasium, her small fingers clutching the handmade Father's Day card she'd spent hours creating. Construction paper hearts. Glitter. Her best attempt at spelling Happy Father's Day in crooked letters. The card was meant for no one in particular, just a school assignment, but she'd poured her whole heart into it anyway. Then the door opened. Every parent in the room turned. Conversations died mid-sentence. Someone actually gasped. Alpha King Cade Blackthorn walked through the door, flanked by his beta and 2 warriors, all of them radiating the kind of power that made the air feel heavy. His presence filled the gymnasium like thunder before a storm. Why would royalty come here? To the lowest-ranked district of the Silver Moon Pack? To a kindergarten Father's Day event? Lily's cards slipped from her fingers and fluttered to the floor. Sarah Winters had been dreading this day for weeks. She'd stood at the back of the gymnasium, trying to make herself invisible, watching her daughter participate in the Father's Day activities with a forced smile. Every year it got harder. Every year the whispers got louder. "That's the one without a father," someone muttered nearby. "Poor thing. Wonder who the father really is." Sarah won't say. That tells you everything you need to know. Sarah kept her eyes on Lily, her heart breaking with every passing second. Her daughter deserved better than this. Better than the shame that followed them everywhere in the pack. Better than being called the bastard pup by children who'd learned cruelty from their parents. She was about to make her way toward Lily when 3 women stepped into her path. Victoria Crane. Beta Marcus's mate. The ringleader of every cruel whisper campaign in the pack, dressed in designer clothes that probably cost more than Sarah made in a month. She had 2 other wealthy pack mothers flanking her like backup singers. Well, Victoria said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "How brave of you to show up today, Sarah. I wasn't sure you'd have the nerve." Sarah's wolf stirred uneasily beneath her skin. "I'm here to support my daughter." "Support her?" Victoria laughed, and the sound carried across the gymnasium. Several parents turned to watch. "Is that what you call it? Bringing her to a Father's Day event when everyone knows she's..." "Careful," Sarah warned, her voice low. But Victoria wasn't finished. She never was. When everyone knows she's fatherless. A bastard pup. The product of whatever, indiscretion, you refuse to explain. The other 2 women tittered behind their hands. Sarah's nails dug into her palms. 6 years. 6 years of this. 6 years of whispers and judgment, and her daughter paying the price for a secret Sarah couldn't tell. Wouldn't tell. Because the truth was so much worse than their speculation. "My daughter has a name," Sarah said quietly. "Use it." "Oh, we know her name." Victoria stepped closer, and Sarah caught the scent of expensive perfume and malice. "We also know she's the pack's disgrace. Just like her mother. An omega with no mate, no status, no..." The gymnasium doors opened. The air changed instantly. Sarah felt it like a physical shock, power rolling through the room, making her wolf whimper and press low in submission. Around them, every werewolf in the building felt it too. Conversations stopped. Parents turned. Children fell silent. Alpha King Cade Blackthorn stood in the doorway. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. No. No, no, no. Not here. Not now. She hadn't seen him in 6 years. 6 years since he'd looked at her with those cold amber eyes and spoken the words that shattered her world. "You're too weak to be my Luna. I, Cade Blackthorn, reject you as my mate." And now he was here, in her daughter's school, and his eyes were scanning the crowd with predatory focus. Those eyes found hers. Cade went completely still. His entire body went rigid, and even from across the room, Sarah saw his pupils dilate. Saw the recognition hit him like a physical blow. Saw something fierce and possessive flash across his face before he locked it down. Her wolf whimpered. Even after all this time, even after the rejection, the bond still pulled at her. Faint but there, like a scar that never quite healed. Sarah wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at her to grab Lily and disappear before. "Some pups don't deserve to celebrate Father's Day," Victoria announced loudly, clearly emboldened by her audience. She was looking at Lily now, and Sarah's heart stopped. Especially when they're products of shame. When their mothers are. Cade moved. 1 second he was by the door. The next he was cutting through the crowd with lethal grace, his eyes flashing gold. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. His beta and warriors followed, but Cade was focused entirely on Victoria, stalking toward her like a predator who'd just spotted prey. Victoria's smug expression faltered. She took a step back, suddenly realizing she'd made a terrible mistake. Cade stopped directly in front of her. He was a full head taller, radiating the kind of power that made grown werewolves submit on instinct. His voice was quiet. "Deadly. What did you just say about that child?" Victoria's face went white. "Alpha King, I didn't know you were." "Answer the question." Each word was precisely enunciated. Controlled. Which somehow made them more terrifying. "What did you just call a 5-year-old pup in my territory?" "I was just," Victoria stammered. "It's not, she doesn't have a father, Anne. And that gives you the right to shame her?" Cade's eyes flashed pure gold now. His wolf was close to the surface. Very close. To call her names? To make her feel unwelcome in her own pack? The gymnasium was silent except for Victoria's panicked breathing. "She's an Omega's pup," Victoria tried weakly. She's a child." Cade's voice dropped even lower. "A pup under my protection. Every member of this pack is under my protection. Including the ones you seem to think you can bully with impunity." Sarah's heart was pounding. She needed to get Lily and leave. She couldn't be here, not with Cade so close, not with the bond pulling at her, not with. But when she looked around frantically, she realized Lily had appeared at her side, pressing close against her leg. Her daughter's small hand gripped Sarah's, and she was staring up at the Alpha King with wide, frightened eyes. Cade's gaze shifted. Locked onto Lily. He went absolutely still. Sarah watched his face change. Watched him look at her daughter, really look at her, for the first time. Lily's dark hair. Her unusual amber eyes. The delicate bone structure that would mature into beauty someday. The resemblance was impossible to miss if you were looking for it. Cade's expression transformed into something Sarah couldn't read. Shock. Confusion. Dawning realization. His eyes snapped to Sarah's, and the question in them was unmistakable. "Is she?" Sarah's wolf howled inside her chest. After 6 years of hiding, 6 years of protecting her daughter from this exact moment, it was all about to come crashing down. "Mommy," Lily whispered, tugging on her hand. "Why is everyone staring at us?" Sarah couldn't answer. Couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Because Cade was looking between her and Lily with growing intensity, and she could see him doing the math. Could see the exact moment the truth clicked into place. His face went hard. "Everyone out. Now." "But Alpha King," someone started. "Out." The command carried the weight of his alpha authority. It wasn't a request. Parents grabbed their children and fled, filing out of the gymnasium in rapid succession. Even Victoria and her friends scrambled to escape. In less than a minute, the gymnasium was empty except for Sarah, Lily, and Cade with his warriors. Cade gestured sharply, and his beta and warriors stepped back, giving them space but not leaving entirely. His eyes never left Lily's face. "How old is she?" His voice was carefully controlled, but Sarah heard the edge underneath. The barely contained fury. Sarah pulled Lily closer. Her daughter was trembling now, confused and scared by the tension crackling through the air. "That's none of your business." "How old?" 5, Sarah admitted, because what was the point of lying now? She just turned 5 last month. Cade's jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists at his sides. When he spoke again, his voice was dangerously soft. Her eyes. She has my eyes. It wasn't a question. Sarah lifted her chin, meeting his gaze directly even though her wolf wanted to submit. We're leaving. Like hell you are. Cade moved to block her path. Not threatening, but immovable. 6 years. You've kept this from me for 6 years? You rejected me. The words came out harsh, raw. 6 years of pain bleeding through. You said I was too weak. You wanted nothing to do with me. That doesn't. Cade stopped himself, clearly aware of Lily listening to every word. His eyes dropped to the little girl again, and something in his expression cracked. Softened. She's mine. Not a question this time. A statement. Sarah's throat tightened. Don't. You gave up any right. I didn't know. Cade's voice was rough now. How could I know when you never told me? I tried. Sarah hissed, keeping her voice low for Lily's sake. I went to the palace. They wouldn't let me through the gates. I sent letters. They were returned unopened. I had no way to reach you, and you'd made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with your weak, pathetic Omega mate. Cade flinched. Actually flinched. Mommy? Lily's voice was small, scared. Who is he? The question hung in the air between them. Sarah looked at Cade. Cade looked at Lily. And the truth, the secret Sarah had protected for 6 years, sat heavy and unavoidable in the silence. Cade crouched down, bringing himself to Lily's eye level. His hands were shaking slightly. What's your name, little one? Lily, she whispered. Lily. He tested the name, and Sarah saw his throat work. That's a beautiful name. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. When he looked up at Sarah, his eyes were blazing. We need to talk. Privately. There's nothing to discuss. Everything to discuss. He stood, and the alpha authority was back in his voice. You've kept my daughter from me for 5 years. You don't get to walk away now. She's not, Sarah started, but the lie wouldn't come. Couldn't come. Not with Lily's amber eyes staring up at both of them, so achingly similar to Cade's it hurt to look at. She is. Cade's voice was absolute. Final. And you know it. Before Sarah could respond, the gymnasium doors burst open. Victoria stood there, flanked by Beta Marcus and several high-ranking pack members. Her face was flushed with vindictive triumph. Alpha King, she called out, her voice carrying across the space. I apologize for the interruption, but the pack has a right to know what's happening. There are rumors about that Omega and her daughter. Questions about legitimacy. About bloodlines. If there's any truth to what we've heard. Cade's head turned slowly. The look on his face could have frozen fire. What, he said, each word dropping like stones, did I tell you about that child? Victoria's confidence wavered, but she'd gone too far to back down now. The pack deserves answers. If she's claiming. She's not claiming anything. Cade's voice cut through the air like a blade. I am. He turned back to Lily, and something fierce and protective blazed in his eyes. This is my daughter. My heir. And anyone who speaks against her or her mother will answer to me personally. The gymnasium exploded into shocked whispers. Sarah's world tilted. What are you doing? Cade looked at her, and for the first time since he'd walked through that door, she saw past the Alpha King to the man underneath. The one who'd once told her she was his fated mate before fear and duty made him push her away. What I should have done 6 years ago, he said quietly. Then louder, to the assembled pack, effective immediately, Sarah Winters and her daughter are under my direct protection. Anyone who challenges this will deal with me. He reached out, and before Sarah could stop him, he gently took Lily's hand. Lily looked up at him with those amber eyes, his eyes, and asked the question that would change everything. "Are you my daddy?" Cade's breath caught. His composure finally cracked, and Sarah saw raw emotion flood his face. Pain. Regret. Hope. Wonder. His voice broke. He looked at Sarah, and for the first time in 6 years, she saw the mate bond flare between them. Still there. Still alive. Still binding them together whether they wanted it or not. And she realized with sudden, terrible clarity that everything was about to change. The Alpha King had just claimed her daughter. Had just declared them under his protection. Had just opened the door to a truth Sarah had spent 6 years running from. There was no going back now. Chapter 2. The question hung in the air like smoke after lightning. "Are you my daddy?" Sarah watched Cade's face transform. Saw the Alpha King, the most powerful werewolf in 3 territories, brought to his knees by 5 simple words from a child. His child. Their child. Before Cade could answer, before Sarah could pull Lily away and run like every instinct screamed at her to do, power exploded through the gymnasium. It wasn't a gradual thing. It was instantaneous and absolute. Cade's alpha command slammed into every werewolf in the building like a physical force. Sarah felt it hit her chest, felt her wolf yelp and try to force her down in submission. Around them, every person in the gymnasium dropped to their knees. Beta Marcus. The high-ranking pack members. Victoria and her friends. Even Cade's own warriors bowed their heads, unable to resist the raw authority radiating from their king. Everyone went down. Except Sarah. She stood frozen, trembling with the effort, her wolf howling inside her to submit, but her body refusing to bend. Her arms tightened around Lily protectively. She wouldn't kneel. Wouldn't bow. Not for him. Not after what he'd done to her. The room went silent except for the sound of Sarah's ragged breathing. Cade's head turned slowly. His eyes, pure molten gold now, locked onto her. Shock flickered across his face. No Omega should be able to resist an Alpha King's command. It was impossible. The hierarchy was absolute. But she was still standing. "Sarah," he said quietly, and she heard the question underneath. "How?" She didn't have an answer. She just knew that after 6 years of surviving on her own, of protecting her daughter against an entire pack's judgment, she'd become stronger than anyone realized. Strong enough to resist even him. Cade's jaw tightened, but he didn't push the command harder. Instead, he released it, and everyone in the room gasped as they could suddenly breathe again. Victoria was still on her knees, her face pale with terror. Good. She should be terrified. Cade turned his attention to her, and Sarah saw the predator fully unleashed. He walked toward Victoria with slow, deliberate steps. Each footfall echoed in the silent gymnasium. "Stand," he commanded. Victoria scrambled to her feet, shaking visibly. "I want you to repeat what you said about my daughter." Cade's voice was conversational, almost pleasant. Which made it infinitely more dangerous. Word for word. "Alpha King, Victoria's voice cracked. "I didn't know." "You didn't know she was mine." "I understand that." Cade nodded slowly. "But you knew she was a 5-year-old child. You knew she was a member of this pack. And you chose to call her." He paused, his eyes flashing. "What was it? A bastard pup? A product of shame?" Victoria's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "She doesn't have a father, I was stating facts." "Facts." Cade's laugh was cold enough to frost glass. "Let me give you some facts, Victoria. That child has a father. She has me." The gymnasium erupted in shocked whispers and gasps. Sarah felt the words hit her like a punch to the gut. He was claiming Lily. Publicly. In front of the entire pack. No. No, this couldn't be happening. That's not, Sarah started, but Cade cut her off with a single look. 5 years old, he said, his eyes boring into Sarah's. Born in June, if I'm calculating correctly. Sarah's throat went tight. He was doing the math. Of course he was doing the math. His face hardened. Which means she was conceived in September. 6 years ago. The pack was silent now, everyone watching the drama unfold. Sarah felt the memory rise up, threatening to choke her. 6 years ago. The mate bond had snapped into place the moment their eyes met across the palace ballroom. Sarah had been there as part of the Omega service staff, helping to serve at the Alpha Summit. She wasn't supposed to even be in the main hall. But then she'd felt it, that undeniable pull. And when she'd looked up, Cade Blackthorne was staring at her with the same shock she felt. Fated mates. The rarest gift the moon goddess could give. One night. He'd given her one perfect night. He'd held her like she was precious, kissed her like she was his entire world, whispered promises against her skin about forever. And then morning came. His council arrived with the dawn. 6 ancient werewolves with judgmental eyes and harsh words. Sarah had hidden in Cade's bedroom, but she'd heard every word through the door. An Omega? You cannot be serious, my king. The pack needs a Luna of alpha blood. Someone strong. A strategic alliance. This is a disaster. The mate bond can be rejected. It's rare, but it can be done. Think of your duty. Your legacy. You need heirs of pure bloodline. And then Cade's voice, tired and resigned, I understand. You're right. It was a mistake. The door had opened. Sarah had stood there in his shirt, hoping, praying, he would fight for her. For them. Instead, he'd looked at her with those cold amber eyes and spoken the words that shattered her soul. You're too weak to be my Luna. I, Cade Blackthorne, reject you as my mate. The pain had dropped her to her knees. The rejection of a mate bond felt like dying. Like someone reached into your chest and ripped out your heart while it was still beating. She'd run. Barely made it out of the palace before the real agony hit. Spent 3 days in bed, burning with fever, her wolf howling in anguish. And then, 2 weeks later, she'd realized she was pregnant. She'd tried to tell him. She had. She'd gone to the palace gates, but the guards wouldn't let her through. The king is not accepting visitors from your kind. She'd written letters, but they came back unopened, marked return to sender. After the 3rd attempt, she'd understood. He didn't want to hear from her. He'd made his choice, and it wasn't her. So she'd made her own choice. She'd left the main pack lands and moved to the lowest district, where no one knew her history. Where she could raise her daughter in peace, away from the politics and cruelty of the upper ranks. She'd survived. Somehow. And she'd kept her daughter safe. Until now. Sarah. Cade's voice pulled her back to the present. His eyes were searching her face, and she saw understanding dawn. You were pregnant. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes. You tried to tell me. Yes. His hands clenched into fists. They wouldn't let you through. No. Something savage crossed his face. Who? Which guards? I'll have their. It doesn't matter. Sarah's voice was flat. It was 6 years ago. You rejected me. I moved on. Moved on? Cade's laugh was bitter. You've been living in poverty, raising my daughter alone, being harassed by pack members. Your decision, Sarah interrupted. Her voice shook, but she held her ground. Your choice. You said I was too weak. You said you wanted nothing to do with me. So I made sure you didn't have to. Pain flickered across Cade's face, quickly buried under alpha authority. He turned back to Victoria, who'd been watching the exchange with wide eyes. You called my daughter a bastard, he said softly. You said she had no father. You made her feel ashamed of existing. Victoria was crying now, mascara running down her face. I didn't know. Does ignorance excuse cruelty? Cade's voice cracked like a whip. Does not knowing she was mine make it acceptable to torture a child? No, Alpha King, your mate. Cade's eyes shifted to Beta Marcus, who'd gone white as snow. He heard you speak this way. He allowed it. Encouraged it, perhaps. My king, please, Marcus started. You allowed your mate to bully my heir. To spread vicious rumors about my daughter and her mother. As Beta, it was your duty to protect all pack members, especially the vulnerable. You failed. Cade's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. You are stripped of your Beta title, effective immediately. The gymnasium erupted in chaos. Stripping a Beta of rank was nearly unheard of. It was a disgrace that would follow Marcus for the rest of his life. Victoria collapsed, sobbing. Marcus looked like he'd been punched. But Cade wasn't finished. He turned back to Sarah, and his expression shifted into something more complex. Something that made her stomach flip. Come here, little one, he said softly to Lily. Sarah's arms tightened on her daughter. Don't. But Lily, curious and unafraid in the way only children can be, slipped from her mother's grasp and walked toward Cade. She stopped a few feet away, studying him with those amber eyes, his eyes. Are you really my daddy? She asked again. Cade crouched down to her level. This close, the resemblance was unmistakable. The same bone structure. The same shade of dark hair. The same unusual golden amber eyes that marked the Blackthorn bloodline. I think I am, Cade said, his voice rough with emotion. Would you want that? Lily tilted her head, considering. Then she took a step closer and sniffed the air around him, a very wolf thing to do. Her face lit up with wonder. You smell like home, she whispered. The mate bond. Sarah realized with a jolt. Their daughter was recognizing the mate bond between her parents, even though it had been rejected. The connection was still there, faint but real, and Lily could sense it through her blood. Cade's breath caught. His hands were shaking as he reached out, hesitant, and Lily walked right into his arms. He held her like she was made of glass. Like she was the most precious thing in the world. And when he looked up at Sarah, his eyes were wet. She's mine, he said, his voice breaking. Our daughter. Sarah felt her own tears threatening. This was what she'd dreamed of once, in those early desperate days. Cade holding their baby. Cade accepting them. Being a family. But it was too late. 6 years too late. You need to let her go, Sarah said quietly. No. Cade stood, still holding Lily, and his voice hardened. I've let her go for 5 years without even knowing she existed. That ends now. You don't get to just. I'm her father. Cade's eyes flashed gold. I have rights. You rejected me. The words burst out of Sarah, loud and raw. You said I was too weak. You chose duty over your mate. You don't get to walk back in now, Anne. I was wrong. The admission seemed torn from him. I was scared and stupid, and I let my counsel manipulate me into the worst decision of my life. But she's here now, and she's mine, and I will not abandon her again. Around them, the pack was watching with undisguised shock. This was pack drama on a level rarely seen, the Alpha King claiming a secret heir. Sarah's wolf was going crazy inside her, torn between the mate bond pulling at her and the memory of the rejection that had nearly killed her. We don't need you, she said, even though it was a lie. They'd needed him for 6 years. But they'd survived without him, and they could continue to survive. Maybe you don't. Cade's voice softened. But I need you. Both of you. He shifted Lily in his arms and took a step toward Sarah. The air between them crackled with the remnants of the mate bond, that invisible thread that even rejection couldn't fully sever. Sarah Winters, he said formally, and the entire pack went silent. You are my fated mate. The moon goddess chose you for me, and I rejected that gift in my arrogance and fear. But the bond is still there. I feel it. I know you feel it too. Sarah's heart was pounding. Don't do this. I'm invoking the ancient law. Cade's voice carried through the gymnasium, alpha authority making every word undeniable. Sarah Winters and Lily Winters will move into the royal palace, effective immediately, where they will be protected and provided for as befits the king's mate and heir. The pack exploded into whispers and gasps. Sarah felt her world tilting. You can't just. I can. I am. Cade's eyes were blazing now. You're still my mate, Sarah. The rejection didn't break the bond, it just damaged it. And our daughter needs her father. No. Sarah's voice was steel. We're not going anywhere with you. The refusal was public. Undeniable. In front of the entire pack, she just rejected the Alpha King's claim. Cade went very still. His wolf surfaced in his eyes, ancient, powerful, and absolutely furious. You're refusing my claim, he said softly. Yes. Even though I'm her father. You rejected us first. Something dangerous flickered across his face. He gently set Lily down, making sure she was steady before he straightened to his full height. When he spoke again, his voice carried the weight of centuries of royal authority. Then let me make this very clear, Sarah. You have two choices. He took a step toward her, and she had to fight not to back away. You can accept my claim. Come to the palace willingly. Let me try to make amends for the mistakes I made. Let me be a father to our daughter and a mate to you. He paused, his eyes boring into hers. Or I can invoke King's right. The pack gasped. Even Sarah felt the words hit her like ice water. King's right. The ancient law that gave the Alpha King absolute authority over his bloodline. The law that would let him take custody of Lily regardless of what Sarah wanted. You wouldn't, she breathed. I would. His voice was implacable. I will not lose my daughter again. I've missed 5 years of her life. I will not miss another day. She's my daughter. She's our daughter. And if you won't come willingly, I will take her to the palace without you. The law gives me that right. His eyes flashed. But I'd rather not. I'd rather have you both. So choose, Sarah. Come with me and we work this out together, or stay behind and lose her anyway. Sarah's mind was spinning. This couldn't be happening. He couldn't just. But he could. King's right was absolute. If he invoked it, there was no appeal. No higher authority. The Alpha King's word was law. She looked down at Lily, who was watching both her parents with confused eyes. Her baby. The child she'd protected for 5 years against an entire pack's cruelty. Could she really let Cade take her away? But could she really go back to the palace? Back to the place where he'd broken her heart? Back to the man who'd rejected her? Mommy? Lily's small voice cut through the chaos. I don't understand what's happening. Sarah's heart cracked. I know, baby. I know. Cade was watching her with those intense amber eyes. I'm not trying to hurt you, Sarah. I'm trying to fix what I broke. But I won't negotiate when it comes to my daughter. She deserves to know her father. She deserves the protection and privileges that come with being my heir. And if I refuse? If I fight you? His expression hardened. Then you'll lose. King's right is absolute. The council, the pack, the law, they all stand with me on this. You can come with her and have a say in how she's raised, or you can stay behind and have none. It was an impossible choice. A cruel choice. But looking at Cade's face, Sarah knew he meant every word. The Alpha King had claimed his heir. And Sarah had to decide right now whether to fight a battle she couldn't win, or walk back into the arms of the man who destroyed her once before. I need time, she started. No. Cade's voice was final. You've had 6 years. I'm done waiting. Choose now, Sarah. Come with me, or I take her without you. Those are your only options. His eyes were gold and unyielding. His wolf was at the surface, possessive and absolute. And Sarah realized, with sick certainty, that the Alpha King was done being patient. He would have his daughter. The only question was whether Sarah would be strong enough to face him every day, knowing he'd rejected her once, and might do it again. Chapter 3. The palace loomed before them like a beautiful nightmare. Sarah sat in the back of Cade's SUV, Lily pressed against her side, watching the massive stone structure grow larger as they approached. She'd been here once before, 6 years ago. One night that had changed everything. She'd sworn she'd never come back. And yet here she was, being escorted through the iron gates with their blackthorn crest, past the manicured gardens and marble fountains, toward a life she'd never wanted. Cade sat in the front passenger seat, his beta, a new one, appointed hastily after Marcus's removal, driving. He hadn't spoken to her since they'd left the school. Hadn't even looked at her. All his attention had been on Lily, explaining where they were going, promising her a room with toys and books and anything she wanted. Sarah might as well have been invisible. Mommy, look. Lily pressed her face to the window. It's like a castle. It is a castle, little one, Cade said, his voice softening in a way it never did when he spoke to Sarah. And you're going to live here now. You're a princess. Lily's eyes went wide with wonder. Really? Really? Cade finally turned, catching Sarah's gaze. His expression was unreadable. Both of you are under my protection now. No one will hurt you here. Sarah wanted to laugh. Hurt her? He'd already done that 6 years ago, and now he was doing it again by forcing her back into his world. But she kept her mouth shut. She'd made her choice, if you could call it a choice when the alternative was losing her daughter. The SUV pulled up to the main entrance. Servants were already waiting, lined up like soldiers. Sarah recognized the head housekeeper, Mrs. Thornberry, a stern woman who'd barely acknowledged her existence 6 years ago. Mrs. Thornberry's expression hadn't changed. Your Majesty. She bowed deeply to Cade, then glanced at Sarah with barely concealed distaste. We've prepared rooms in the Omega Wing as instructed. The Omega Wing. Not the royal quarters. Not the Luna's suite. The servants' wing. Sarah's jaw clenched, but she said nothing. What had she expected? He'd made it clear she wasn't here as his mate. She was here as the king's ward, whatever that meant. A glorified prisoner with a fancy title. The child will stay in the royal wing, Cade said, lifting Lily from the car. Near my quarters. Of course, Your Majesty. Sarah felt her heart drop. Wait, what? No. She stays with me. Cade's eyes were cold when they met hers. She's my heir. She belongs in the royal wing. She's 5 years old. She's not sleeping away from her mother in some unfamiliar. I'll be right across the hall from her. She won't be alone. That's not the same thing. Sarah's voice rose. Lily squirmed in Cade's arms, sensing the tension. It's the appropriate arrangement, Cade said firmly. She's a blackthorn. She needs to learn what that means. She needs her mother. And she'll see you every day. But she sleeps in the royal wing. His tone left no room for argument. This wasn't a discussion. It was a decree. Sarah felt the walls closing in. This was how it would be, then. Cade making all the decisions, overruling her at every turn, separating her from her daughter bit by bit. Hey. Cade's voice softened slightly when he saw her expression. I'm not trying to take her from you, Sarah. I'm trying to give her what she deserves. A proper room. Protection. Her birthright. And what about what I deserve? The words came out bitter. Cade's face hardened again. You made your choices 6 years ago. You kept her from me. Don't expect me to bend over backward to make you comfortable now. The accusation hit like a slap. I tried to tell you. Not hard enough. He turned away, carrying Lily toward the entrance. Mrs. Thornberry will show you to your room. Dinner is at 7. Don't be late. And just like that, he was gone, taking Lily with him, leaving Sarah standing in the driveway with servants staring at her like she was something distasteful tracked in on their shoes. Mrs. Thornberry cleared her throat. This way, Miss Winters. Miss Winters. Not Luna. Not even Mrs. She was nobody here. Sarah followed the housekeeper through marble hallways that screamed wealth and power. Everything was polished to gleaming perfection. Oil paintings of previous blackthorn rulers lined the walls, their eyes seeming to judge her as she passed. The Omega wing was in the east section of the palace, as far from the royal quarters as possible while still being inside the building. The room Mrs. Thornberry showed her to was nice enough, better than anywhere Sarah had lived in the past 6 years, but it was clearly a servant's room. Small. Plain. A single bed, a dresser, a tiny bathroom. Meals are served in the main dining hall at 7, noon, and 7, Mrs. Thornberry said crisply. You're expected to follow palace protocol. No wandering the grounds without permission. The king has granted you access to the library and gardens during designated hours. Granted her access. Like she was a guest. Or a prisoner on parole. Where's my daughter sleeping? Sarah asked. The princess has been given the Rose Suite in the royal wing. 3rd floor, west corridor. Princess. They were already calling Lily Princess. Can I see her room? Mrs. Thornberry's expression suggested this was a ridiculous request. Perhaps later, after you've settled in. The king is with the princess now. Translation: Cade didn't want to see her. He'd gotten what he wanted, his daughter, and Sarah was just the inconvenient complication that came with her. Will that be all, Miss Winters? Sarah wanted to scream. To rage. To demand better treatment. But she was tired, and her wolf was exhausted from fighting, and she knew it wouldn't matter anyway. That's all, she said quietly. Mrs. Thornberry left without another word. Sarah sank onto the bed and let herself cry for the first time since this nightmare began. Dinner was worse than she'd imagined. Sarah had been shown to the formal dining hall at 7 sharp, expecting a quiet meal with Cade and Lily. Instead, she walked into a room full of high-ranking pack members, council members, and one woman who made Sarah's blood run cold. Lady Celeste Ravenclaw sat at Cade's right hand, exactly where the Luna, or the chosen mate, would sit. She was stunning. Alpha blood from a powerful family, with the kind of effortless beauty that came from generations of careful breeding. Long dark hair, sharp cheekbones, a body that curved in all the right places. She wore a dress that probably cost more than Sarah made in a year, and diamonds glittered at her throat. She looked like a queen. And when her eyes landed on Sarah, they were filled with pure venom. Ah, Miss Winters, Cade said, his voice formal and distant. Come. Sit. He gestured to a seat at the far end of the table. Not near him. Not near Lily, who was seated on his left side with a booster seat. At the very end, with the lowest-ranking pack members. Sarah's humiliation was complete. She took her seat without protest, keeping her eyes down. Around her, pack members whispered behind their hands. She caught fragments of conversation. That's her? The Omega? Fated mate, but he rejected her. Can't believe she's living here. Poor Lady Celeste. Celeste. Sarah forced herself to look at the woman who'd taken her place. Celeste was speaking to Cade in low tones, her hand resting possessively on his arm. Cade didn't pull away. Didn't seem bothered by the intimate touch. Sarah's wolf snarled inside her chest. Mine, her wolf whispered. Our mate. Ours. But he wasn't. He'd rejected them. He'd chosen Celeste instead, beautiful, powerful, alpha blood Celeste who fit perfectly into his world. "Mommy." Lily's voice rang out, and suddenly her daughter was climbing down from her seat, running toward her. "Mommy, I have my own room. It's huge. And there's a princess bed and toys and..." "Lily." Cade's voice was sharp. "Back to your seat. We don't leave the table during meals." Lily froze, confused. She'd never heard that rule before. At home, dinner had been casual, just the two of them at their tiny kitchen table. "But I want to sit with Mommy." "You're sitting with me." Cade's tone softened slightly. "Come. Your food is here." Lily looked between them, clearly torn. Then, heartbreakingly, she trudged back to Cade's side. Sarah felt something inside her break a little more. The meal was torture. Course after course of food Sarah couldn't taste, while Celeste played the perfect hostess, charming the council members and shooting daggers at Sarah whenever Cade wasn't looking. Finally, during dessert, Celeste's sugary voice rang out. "Your Majesty, I was hoping we could discuss the full moon ceremony. It's only 3 weeks away, and there's still so much to prepare." Sarah's head snapped up. "Full moon ceremony?" Cade's jaw tightened. "We'll discuss it later, Celeste. But darling, the invitations have already been sent. The entire pack is expecting." She paused delicately, her eyes sliding to Sarah. "Well, certain announcements." The table went silent. Everyone knew what she meant. The full moon ceremony. When Cade would officially take Celeste as his chosen mate. When he would mark her, bind himself to her, and crown her Luna. In 3 weeks. Sarah's stomach turned. She pushed her dessert away, suddenly unable to breathe. "The ceremony will proceed as planned," Cade said, his voice flat. He didn't look at Sarah. "My personal situation doesn't change pack business." Personal situation. That's what she was. An inconvenient personal situation. Celeste's smile was triumphant. "Of course, Your Majesty. I just wanted to make sure we were still on schedule." Sarah couldn't take any more. She stood abruptly, her chair scraping against marble. "May I be excused?" she asked, hating how small her voice sounded. Cade finally looked at her, his expression unreadable. "Dinner isn't finished." "I'm not hungry." "Sit down, Sarah." It wasn't a request. It was an alpha command, laced with power. But just like in the gymnasium, Sarah found herself able to resist. Her wolf pushed back against his authority, and she remained standing. Shock flickered across Cade's face. Across the entire table. An Omega shouldn't be able to resist an Alpha's command, let alone an Alpha King's. "I said I'm not hungry," Sarah repeated, her voice stronger now. "And unless I'm actually a prisoner here, I'd like to go to my room." The word prisoner hung in the air. Cade's eyes flashed gold. "You're not a prisoner. But you are expected to follow palace protocol. Then consider me a bad student." Sarah turned toward the door. "Good night, Lily. I love you." "Mommy, wait." Lily started to get up, but Cade's hand on her shoulder stopped her. Sarah forced herself to keep walking. To not look back at her daughter's confused face. Behind her, she heard Celeste's delighted laugh. Well. That was certainly dramatic. Sarah fled. She found the library the next morning by accident, wandering the palace's endless corridors in search of anything that would make her feel less trapped. The library was massive, 3 stories of books reaching toward a glass ceiling. Morning light streamed through, making the dust motes dance like fairies. Sarah breathed in the scent of old paper and leather bindings. This, at least, felt safe. She was running her fingers along the spines of history books when she heard footsteps behind her. Looking for something specific? Sarah spun around. An elderly woman stood there, leaning on a cane. She was small and frail-looking, but her eyes were sharp and knowing. She wore simple clothes, but something about her bearing screamed power. No, just browsing, Sarah stammered. The woman studied her with unsettling intensity. You're her. The Omega. Sarah's spine straightened. I have a name. I'm sure you do. The woman moved closer, her cane tapping against marble. I'm Eleanor Blackthorne. Cade's grandmother. The former queen. Sarah's breath caught. She'd heard of Eleanor Blackthorne. The woman had ruled alongside her mate for 50 years before passing the crown to her son, Cade's father, who died in battle 10 years ago. Your Majesty, Sarah started to bow, but Eleanor waved her off. None of that. I gave up titles when I gave up the crown. She settled into a nearby chair with a sigh. So. You're the one who has my grandson tied in knots. I'm not trying to. Of course you're not. That's what makes it interesting. Eleanor's eyes were knowing. The fated mate. The rejected bond. The secret child. It's quite the drama. Sarah's cheeks burned. If you're here to judge me. Judge you? Child, I'm here to warn you. That made Sarah pause. Warn me about what? Eleanor was quiet for a long moment, studying Sarah like she was a puzzle to be solved. Do you know why my grandson rejected you? The question was a knife to old wounds. He said I was too weak. That his council needed him to mate with alpha blood. That's what he said. But do you know the real reason? Sarah's heart started pounding. What do you mean? Eleanor leaned forward. There's a prophecy. An old one, passed down through the Blackthorne line. It says, when an Omega stands beside the throne, the bloodline will fall to ruin, and the pack will be destroyed. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. A prophecy? My grandson's entire council pushed him to reject you based on that prophecy. They terrified him with visions of destruction and death. They made him believe that keeping you as his mate would doom everyone he was sworn to protect. Sarah felt sick. So he rejected me to, what? Save the pack? He thought he was making a sacrifice. Putting duty before happiness. Eleanor's eyes were sad. He was young and scared, and they manipulated him beautifully. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to understand what you're up against. That child of yours, Lily, she carries both royal and Omega blood. She's an anomaly. A contradiction to everything the prophecy says. Eleanor's voice dropped. She's either the pack's salvation or its destruction. And there are those in this palace who will want to make sure it's not the latter. Fear shot through Sarah. Are you saying someone would hurt her? I'm saying be careful. Watch her closely. And don't trust anyone. Eleanor stood slowly. Including my grandson. He broke you once. He could do it again. Before Sarah could respond, Eleanor was walking away, her cane tapping a lonely rhythm. Sarah stood frozen, the prophecy echoing in her mind. An Omega will bring ruin. Is that why Cade looked at her with such coldness? Because he still believed she was dangerous? She spent the rest of the day with Lily, playing in the gardens under the watchful eyes of palace guards. Her daughter was happy here, that was undeniable. She had space to run, toys to play with, attention from servants who doted on the princess. But Sarah felt like a ghost. Ignored by most, scorned by others. Celeste had made sure to spread the word, Sarah was here on sufferance, nothing more. The real Luna would be crowned in 3 weeks. It was during one of these garden sessions that Sarah first noticed something strange. Lily was playing near a rose bush that had looked half dead that morning, brown leaves and withered blooms. But as Sarah sat nearby, lost in thought, she absently reached out and touched the stem. Warmth flooded through her hand. The rose bush shuddered. New leaves unfurled. Buds appeared, then burst into full bloom, deep red roses, dozens of them, all blooming at once in a cascade of color. Sarah jerked her hand back, heart pounding. What the hell? She stared at the now thriving rose bush. That wasn't normal. That wasn't possible. She looked around frantically, but no one seemed to have noticed. The guards were watching Lily, not her. Carefully, experimentally, Sarah reached out to a patch of wilted daisies nearby. The same thing happened. Warmth. Power flowing through her. The flowers perking up, blooming, thriving under her touch. Sarah pulled back, trembling. This had never happened before. What was? And then she felt it. A wave of emotion that wasn't hers. Lily's joy as she played. The guard's boredom mixed with alertness. Further away, in the palace, anger and jealousy from Celeste, cold calculation from council members, and from Cade. Regret. Longing. Guilt. His emotions hit her like a tidal wave, and she gasped, clutching her chest. She could feel them. All of them. Every pack member in range, their emotions flowing into her like water. What was happening to her? Dinner that night was tense. Celeste was absent, thankfully, but the silence between Sarah and Cade was suffocating. Lily chattered happily about her day, oblivious to the undercurrents. They were halfway through the main course when Lily suddenly went quiet. Lily? Sarah looked up. Are you okay, baby? Lily's face had gone pale. Her eyes were unfocused, staring at something no one else could see. Lily? Cade's voice was sharp with concern. Then Lily started screaming. It was a sound of pure terror, high-pitched and agonized. She clutched her head, her small body convulsing. Lily! Sarah lunged from her seat, but Cade was already there, catching their daughter as she collapsed. The bad wolves, Lily sobbed, her voice strange and distant. The bad wolves are coming. They're coming for us. They're going to hurt us. There. Her eyes flew open. They were glowing. Not gold, like alpha eyes. Not red, like an Omega's wolf might flash. Silver. Pure, brilliant silver, like moonlight given form. The entire dining hall went silent. Guards froze. Servants stared. Silver eyes hadn't been seen in werewolves for 300 years. Not since the moon goddess's chosen bloodline, the moon touched, had died out in the Great War. That's impossible, Cade breathed. But Lily's eyes blazed silver, and when she spoke again, her voice wasn't her own. It was older. Ancient. Echoing with power. The darkness comes, she whispered. The darkness comes, and the chosen must rise, or all will fall. Then her eyes rolled back, and she went limp in Cade's arms. The silence was deafening. Sarah's hands were shaking as she reached for her daughter. Lily? Baby? Can you hear me? No response. Lily was unconscious, her breathing shallow. Cade's face had gone white. He looked at Sarah, and for the first time since she'd arrived at the palace, she saw fear in his eyes. What is she? He whispered. But Sarah had no answer. Because whatever their daughter was, whatever power had just manifested in her 5-year-old body, it was something none of them had seen before. Something that shouldn't exist. And the prophecy echoed in Sarah's mind, salvation or destruction. The question was, which one had they just witnessed? Chapter 4. The pack doctor worked over Lily's unconscious form for 3 hours. Sarah refused to leave her daughter's side, standing vigil by the bed in the palace's medical wing while Cade paced like a caged animal. Council members filled the hallway outside, their worried whispers carrying through the door. Dr. Morgan was ancient, his hair white as snow, his hands steady despite his age. He'd been the royal physician for 60 years, had delivered Cade himself. If anyone would know what was happening to Lily, it would be him. Finally, he straightened, his expression grave. Well? Cade demanded. What's wrong with her? Dr. Morgan was quiet for a long moment, his eyes moving between Lily's small form and her parents. Nothing is wrong with her, Your Majesty. Quite the opposite, actually. Then why did she collapse? Why did her eyes? Cade couldn't even finish the sentence. Because she's awakening, Dr. Morgan said softly. And at 5 years old, her body isn't ready for that kind of power. Sarah's throat tightened. What kind of power? Dr. Morgan met her gaze. Your daughter is a silver wolf, Miss Winters. The first one born in 3 centuries. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Sarah had heard the legends, of course. Every werewolf child grew up hearing stories of the silver wolves, the moon goddesses chosen, blessed with abilities that made them the most powerful wolves to ever exist. They could heal with a touch, sense danger before it came, unite packs through sheer will. They were protectors. Leaders. Sacred. And they'd all died out 300 years ago in the Great War, when the vampires had hunted them to extinction. That's impossible, Cade said flatly. The silver bloodline is gone. Apparently not. Dr. Morgan gestured to Lily. The silver eyes don't lie, Your Majesty. That's the mark of the moon goddess herself. Your daughter carries her blessing. Sarah felt like the floor was tilting beneath her. But how? How is that possible? Dr. Morgan's gaze sharpened. Silver wolves can only be born from true fated mate bonds. Not chosen mates. Not political alliances. True mates blessed by the moon goddess herself. He paused. You and the king are fated mates, are you not? The question was like a blade. Cade's face went white. I rejected. You rejected the bond, yes. But you didn't break it. Rejection damages the mate bond, weakens it, but it doesn't sever it completely. Not for true mates. Dr. Morgan looked at them both with something like pity. When you came together that night 6 years ago, the bond was active. Strong. And from that union, a silver wolf was born. Sarah couldn't breathe. All this time, she'd thought Lily was just hers. Just a regular wolf pup who would grow up normal and safe. But instead, her daughter was one of the rarest, most powerful creatures in their world. A creature that shouldn't exist. Cade sank into a chair, his head in his hands. What have I done? You rejected your fated mate, Dr. Morgan said bluntly. And in doing so, you nearly lost the most powerful wolf born in centuries. If Miss Winters hadn't kept the pregnancy, if she'd been too weak to survive the rejection, your daughter would have died with her. The moon goddess gave you a gift, Your Majesty, and you threw it away. The condemnation in the doctor's voice was clear. Sarah had never heard anyone speak to Cade like that. Cade didn't argue. He just stared at Lily's sleeping form with an expression of such anguish that Sarah almost felt sorry for him. Almost. What happens now? Sarah asked. Is she in danger? Physically, she'll recover. But her powers are awakening early, probably triggered by stress or fear. She'll need training, guidance. And, Dr. Morgan's expression grew grave. She'll need protection. If word gets out about what she is, every pack in North America will want her. Either to use her power for themselves or to eliminate the threat she represents. Sarah's blood ran cold. Eliminate? Silver wolves are powerful, Miss Winters. Dangerously so. There are those who would see her as a weapon. And those who would see her as a threat that needs to be destroyed before she comes into her full power. Cade's head snapped up. No one will touch her. I'll kill anyone who tries. Then you'll need to keep her existence secret, Dr. Morgan warned. The fewer people who know what she is, the safer she'll be. But it was too late for that. The council members outside had all witnessed Lily's silver eyes. The servants who'd been in the dining hall had seen it. By morning, the entire pack would know. And if their pack knew, it was only a matter of time before others found out. I'll call an emergency council meeting, Cade said, standing. We need to contain this. Control the narrative. He looked at Sarah. Stay with her. Don't let anyone in except Dr. Morgan. It wasn't a suggestion. It was an order. Sarah wanted to argue, but for once, she agreed with him. She wasn't leaving Lily's side until her daughter woke up. Cade strode toward the door, then paused. He looked back at Sarah, his expression unreadable. I should have believed you. 6 years ago, when you tried to reach me. I should have listened. Then he was gone. The council meeting lasted until dawn. Sarah stayed curled in a chair beside Lily's bed, holding her daughter's small hand, watching the steady rise and fall of her chest. Every breath felt like a miracle. A silver wolf. Her baby was a silver wolf. The legend said they were protectors. Heroes. But they'd also said that silver wolves had been hunted to extinction because they were too powerful, too dangerous. Because other packs feared them. What kind of life would Lily have now? Always looking over her shoulder, always hiding what she was? Sarah's eyes burned with exhaustion and unshed tears. This was her fault. If she'd been stronger, if she'd found a way to make Cade listen 6 years ago, maybe things would be different. Maybe Lily would have grown up safe, protected, claimed by her father from birth. Instead, Sarah had raised her alone, in poverty, surrounded by wolves who called her a bastard. The door opened softly. Sarah tensed, but it was just a servant bringing breakfast. A young woman Sarah didn't recognize, carrying a tray with food and tea. For you, Miss Winters, the servant said, setting the tray on a nearby table. His Majesty thought you might be hungry. Sarah's stomach was in knots. Thank you, but I'm not. Please. You need to keep your strength up. For the little one. The servant smiled kindly, and something about her gentleness made Sarah's defenses crack. She was so tired of being treated like trash. Thank you, Sarah said softly. The servant left, and Sarah mechanically ate some toast, washing it down with tea that tasted faintly of herbs. Probably something to help her stay awake. She just finished when footsteps echoed in the hallway. Multiple people, moving quickly. The door burst open. Cade stormed in, flanked by guards, his face twisted with fury. Behind him, Celeste followed, her expression a perfect mask of concern. What? Sarah started to stand, but Cade's eyes were blazing. How could you? His voice was deadly quiet. More terrifying than if he'd shouted. Sarah's heart lurched. How could I what? Don't play innocent. Cade stalked toward her. We found it in your room. The wolfsbane. The world tilted. What? I don't. In your dresser drawer. A vial of concentrated wolfsbane extract. Cade's hands were shaking. The doctor just confirmed it's in Lily's system. Someone poisoned my daughter, and the evidence points directly to you. Sarah couldn't breathe. No. No, I would never. You were alone with her all evening, Celeste said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. You had opportunity. And motive. Motive? Sarah's voice cracked. She's my daughter. Exactly, Celeste continued smoothly. A daughter who just revealed herself to be incredibly valuable. A daughter the king now has every reason to take from you permanently. Unless, of course, something happened to her while she was in the king's care. Then you'd have grounds to demand her return, wouldn't you? Claim the palace was unsafe. It was insane. A complete fabrication. But Sarah could see from Cade's face that doubt was taking root. I didn't poison her, Sarah said desperately. Cade, you have to believe me. I would die before I hurt Lily. Then explain the wolfsbane in your room. I can't. I don't know how it got there. Someone must have planted it. Of course, Celeste murmured. The classic defense. Sarah wanted to scream. This was a setup. It had to be. But who would? Her eyes landed on Celeste, and suddenly it clicked. The woman who stood to lose everything if Cade decided to honor his mate bond. The woman whose Luna ceremony was supposed to happen in 3 weeks. It was you, Sarah breathed. You did this. Celeste's expression didn't change, but something cold flashed in her eyes. That's quite an accusation. You poisoned Lily and planted the wolfsbane in my room. You're framing me. Why would I harm a child? Celeste's voice was perfectly reasonable. I have nothing to gain from it. You have everything to gain. If I'm gone, if I'm discredited, Cade will have no reason to keep me around. You'll get your Luna ceremony. Your crown. Everything you want. Enough. Cade's alpha command cracked through the air. Guards. Take her to the dungeons. Sarah's heart stopped. What? No. Cade, please. Until we sort this out, you're confined. His face was stone. If you're innocent, we'll discover it. But I won't risk my daughter's life. She's my daughter too. Sarah's voice broke. Please don't do this. Please. The guards grabbed her arms. She fought, struggled, but they were too strong. They dragged her toward the door while she screamed for Cade to listen, to believe her, to see the truth. He didn't look at her. He just stood there, his back to her, his entire body rigid. The last thing Sarah saw before they pulled her from the room was Celeste's small, triumphant smile. The palace dungeons were exactly as horrible as Sarah had imagined. Cold. Dark. Damp. They threw her into a cell with stone walls and silver bars, silver, which burned any werewolf who touched it, and left her there without another word. Sarah collapsed against the wall, her body shaking. This couldn't be happening. She couldn't be locked up while her daughter fought for her life upstairs. And the worst part? Cade believed it. He believed she would hurt Lily. After everything, after 6 years of raising their daughter alone, protecting her, loving her, he thought Sarah was capable of poisoning her own child. The betrayal cut deeper than the rejection had. At least 6 years ago, he'd been young and scared and manipulated. But now? He was just choosing not to believe her. Choosing Celeste over her. Again. Sarah didn't know how long she sat there. Hours. Days, maybe. Time lost meaning in the darkness. Then she felt it. A spike of pain. Terror. Not her own. Lily. Something was wrong. Sarah scrambled to her feet, pressing against the silver bars even though they burned her palms. Guard. Guard. Something's wrong with my daughter. No answer. The dungeons were empty except for her. Another wave of pain hit, and Sarah screamed. She could feel Lily dying. Could feel her daughter's life force flickering like a candle in the wind. No. No, no, no. Rage exploded through Sarah like a supernova. She grabbed the silver bars with both hands, ignoring the searing agony as they burned her flesh. Her wolf surged forward, stronger than it had ever been, and something inside her broke open. Power flooded through her veins. Ancient. Vast. Terrifying. Her eyes burst into silver light. The bars shattered in her hands like glass. Just exploded outward in a cascade of broken metal that shouldn't have been possible. Silver was supposed to hold werewolves. Was supposed to be unbreakable. But Sarah wasn't just a werewolf anymore. She ran. Through the dungeons, up the stairs, through corridors. Servants scattered at the sight of her, this wild creature with glowing silver eyes and burns on her palms that were healing even as she moved. She burst into Lily's room to find chaos. Dr. Morgan worked frantically over Lily's convulsing body. Cade stood frozen, his face ashen. And Celeste. Celeste was backing toward the door, something clutched in her hand. Stop her. Sarah screamed, pointing at Celeste. But Celeste was already running. Sarah wanted to chase her, but Lily's weak cry pulled her back. She rushed to her daughter's side, shouldering past Cade and the doctor. Lily, baby, I'm here. She touched Lily's forehead, and power erupted from her hands. Silver light poured from Sarah into her daughter. She could feel the poison in Lily's system, could sense it burning through her small body. And somehow, instinctively, Sarah knew what to do. She pulled the poison out. It was like drawing venom from a wound, except she was doing it with pure will and power she didn't understand. The wolfsbane came out of Lily's bloodstream, neutralizing as it hit Sarah's own body, harmless to her in a way that made no sense. Lily gasped. Her eyes flew open, amber now, not silver, and she threw her arms around Sarah's neck. "Mommy." Sarah held her daughter and sobbed. "I've got you. I've got you, baby. You're safe now." When she finally looked up, the entire room was staring at her. Dr. Morgan's mouth was open in shock. Cade looked like he'd seen a ghost. "How did you do that?" the doctor whispered. Sarah looked down at her hands. The burns from the silver bars were gone. Her palms glowed faintly with silver light that was already fading. "I don't know," she said honestly. "I do," Dr. Morgan said slowly. "You're not an Omega, Miss Winters. You never were." Sarah's head snapped up. "What?" "Silver wolves sometimes present as Omegas when their power is dormant. It's a protection mechanism, keeps them hidden until they're ready to awaken." Dr. Morgan's eyes were wide with wonder. "You're a silver wolf, just like your daughter. And your bond with the king activated both your powers." The revelation hit like a physical blow. She was a silver wolf. Had been one all along. That's why she'd been able to resist Cade's alpha commands. Why she could feel pack members' emotions. Why plants grew when she touched them. It had never been weakness. It had been power, waiting to wake up. "The prophecy," Dr. Morgan murmured, pulling out an ancient book from his medical bag. He flipped through pages until he found what he was looking for. Here. The full prophecy of the silver moon. He read aloud, "When the king rejects the silver moon, darkness will rise. Blood will spill, and innocence will pay the price. Only through blood and redemption can the crown be forged anew. The king must choose, power or love, duty or destiny. And his choice will save or damn them all." Silence fell over the room. Cade's face had gone white. "The silver moon. That's you. You were the silver moon, and I." "You rejected her," Dr. Morgan finished. "You fulfilled the first part of the prophecy. And now darkness is rising, just as it predicted." "Celeste," Sarah said suddenly, remembering. She ran. She had something in her hand. Cade was already moving toward the door, barking orders to guards. "Find Lady Celeste. Now. Don't let her leave the grounds." But Sarah knew, with a sick certainty, that it was too late. Celeste was gone. And whatever she'd taken with her, evidence of Lily's existence, proof of what she was, it was already on its way to whoever wanted it. The silver wolf had been revealed. And the darkness was coming. Cade turned back to Sarah, and for the first time, she saw him truly see her. Not as the weak Omega he'd rejected. Not as an inconvenient obligation. But as what she actually was. His equal. His mate. His salvation or his damnation. "Sarah," he said, his voice raw. "What have I done?" Sarah held Lily closer, her daughter's small body trembling against her. "You chose duty over destiny. And now we all pay the price." Through the window, dawn was breaking. And somewhere out there, Celeste was delivering news that would change everything. The silver wolf had returned. And the war was just beginning. Chapter 5. The council arrived within the hour. Sarah was still holding Lily, her daughter finally sleeping peacefully after the ordeal, when she heard the commotion in the hallway. Raised voices. Demands. The sharp cadence of authority being wielded like a weapon. Cade's jaw tightened. "Stay here. I'll handle this." "Handle what?" Sarah asked, though dread already pooled in her stomach. The door burst open before Cade could answer. Council members flooded into the room, ancient wolves with cold eyes and expensive suits. At their head was Counselor Thorne, a man Sarah recognized from her brief time at the palace 6 years ago. He'd been one of the loudest voices demanding Cade reject her. "Your Majesty," Thorne said, his voice clipped. "We need to discuss the Omega." "Her name is Sarah," Cade said, his voice dangerously quiet. "And she's not up for discussion. She broke out of silver restraints. She wielded power that no Omega should possess. And now," Thorne's eyes landed on Lily with undisguised distaste. "Now we discover she's birthed an abomination." Sarah's arms tightened around her daughter. Her wolf snarled, ready to fight. "Choose your next words very carefully," Cade warned. But Thorne pressed on. "The child is a silver wolf. Her very existence destabilizes the natural order. And her mother used dark magic to heal her. The council demands." "The council demands nothing," Cade interrupted. "I am your king. A king who has allowed his judgment to be compromised by a mate bond he should have severed completely years ago." Another counselor stepped forward, an elderly woman named Marissa. "The Omega must be executed. It's the only way to protect the pack from the darkness she'll bring." Sarah felt the blood drain from her face. "Executed? They wanted to kill her. Get out." Cade's voice was absolutely calm, which somehow made it more terrifying. "All of you. Now. Your Majesty, you must see reason." I said. "Get out." The alpha command that followed was like a physical force. It drove the council members backward, forcing them toward the door even as they resisted. They stumbled over each other in their haste to escape the crushing weight of his authority. The door slammed shut behind them. Cade turned to Sarah, and she saw something shift in his expression. The cold, distant Alpha King was gone. In his place was a man who looked lost. "They'll come back," he said quietly. "With reinforcements. They'll demand I make a choice, them or you. Then choose them." Sarah's voice was hollow. "I'll take Lily and disappear." "You'll never have to." "No." Cade crossed the room in 3 strides. He stopped just short of touching her, his hands clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself. "I've made that choice before. I chose duty over you, and it was the worst mistake of my life." Sarah's throat tightened. "Cade. I'm choosing you now. Both of you." His eyes met hers, blazing with intensity. "I should have done it 6 years ago. I should have fought for you, told the council to go to hell, claimed you as my mate regardless of what they said. But I was a coward." His voice cracked. "I was terrified of the prophecy, terrified of failing my pack, and I let that fear destroy the best thing that ever happened to me." Sarah wanted to believe him. God, some broken part of her wanted so desperately to believe that he meant it this time. But trust, once shattered, didn't heal easily. "You rejected me," she said softly. "You looked me in the eye and said I was too weak. That I wasn't good enough. I was wrong. You threw me away like garbage. I tried to tell you about our daughter, and your guards turned me away. Your letters came back unopened. For 6 years, I raised Lily alone, wondering every day if we'd have enough to eat, if we'd be safe, if anyone would find out who her father was and take her from me." Sarah's voice shook. "You don't get to just apologize and make that go away." Cade flinched like she'd struck him. "You're right. I don't. But I'm asking you to let me try to make it right." "For how long? Until the council pressures you again? Until the next prophecy scares you? Until you decide we're too inconvenient?" "Sarah. I don't trust you." The words hung between them, brutal and honest. "I can't." Pain flickered across Cade's face, but he nodded slowly. "I understand. I'll have to earn it back. But right now, we have a bigger problem." He pulled out his phone, showing her a message. Celeste left the palace grounds an hour ago. We tracked her heading east. Towards Shadow Fong territory. Sarah's blood ran cold. Shadow Fong Pack. Cade's greatest enemy, led by an alpha named Darius Stone who'd been trying to expand his territory for years. There were rumors of brutality, of wolves who disappeared into Shadow Fong lands and never came back. She's selling information about Lily, Sarah said, horror dawning. She's telling them what she is. Worse. Cade pulled up another message. My scouts intercepted communications. Darius Stone wants a silver wolf. He believes he can use her power to create an army, force other packs to submit, expand his territory across the entire continent. With a silver wolf under his control, he'd be unstoppable. Sarah clutched Lily tighter. He can't have her. No, he can't. Which means we need to disappear before he comes looking. Cade's expression was grim. We go on the run. The three of us. Tonight. Run where? You're the Alpha King. Where can you possibly hide? Omega Territory. Sarah stared at him. Omega Territory was the lowest-ranked district, where the weakest pack members lived. Where she'd raised Lily for 5 years. It was the last place anyone would look for the Alpha King. It was also a place where Cade's authority meant nothing. Where alphas were viewed with suspicion and hostility. Where the pack hierarchy he'd built his entire life around held no power. They'll never accept you there, Sarah said. I know. Cade met her gaze steadily. But it's the safest place for Lily. For you. And right now, that's all that matters. They left at midnight. Sarah packed what little they could carry while Cade made arrangements. He dismissed his guards, told his beta to maintain the palace in his absence, and left instructions that he was not to be disturbed. Lily woke up confused, rubbing her eyes. Where are we going, Mommy? On an adventure, Sarah said, forcing brightness into her voice. Just for a little while. They slipped out through the servants' entrance, moving through shadows. Cade led them to a nondescript car, no royal vehicles, nothing that would draw attention, and they drove into the night. Sarah watched the palace disappear in the rearview mirror and felt something break inside her chest. She'd hated that place, had felt like a prisoner there. But at least it had been safe. At least the walls had been thick and the guards had been trained. Now they had nothing but each other. Cade drove in silence, his jaw tight, his eyes constantly checking mirrors for followers. In the back seat, Lily dozed against Sarah's shoulder. How did you know? Sarah asked quietly. About Celeste working with Shadow Fong? Cade's hands tightened on the steering wheel. I didn't. Not until tonight. My intelligence network picked up chatter about a special delivery to Darius Stone. When Celeste fled, I put the pieces together. You trusted her. I thought I did. His voice was bitter. The council approved her. Her bloodline was impeccable. She said all the right things. I thought she'd make a good Luna. But you didn't love her. Cade was quiet for a long moment. No. I didn't. I don't think I'm capable of loving anyone but you. The admission hung in the air between them. Sarah didn't know what to say to that. Part of her wanted to rage at him. Love wasn't enough if he wasn't willing to fight for it. But another part of her, the part that still remembered their one perfect night together, ached with longing. The mate bond, she said instead. Dr. Morgan said rejection damages it but doesn't break it. Does that mean? It's still there. Cade's voice was rough. Weaker than it should be, but alive. I can feel you, Sarah. Have been able to feel you this whole time, even when I tried to pretend I couldn't. Your emotions. Your pain. Every time someone in the pack hurt you, I felt it. I just ignored it. Sarah's chest tightened. Why? Because acknowledging it meant acknowledging I'd made a mistake. Meant admitting the council was wrong. Meant accepting that I'd destroyed the one thing that actually mattered. He glanced at her in the rearview mirror. I was a coward, Sarah. I'm so goddamn sorry. She wanted to stay angry. Wanted to hold on to the rage that had sustained her through 6 years of struggle. But sitting here, watching him drive them into the unknown to protect their daughter, she felt the anger cracking. Not gone. Not forgiven. But, shifting. They arrived at Omega territory just before dawn. The buildings here were run down, paint peeling, windows cracked. This was where the Pack's Forgotten lived, the ones too weak to climb the hierarchy, too poor to matter to the powerful. Sarah knew these streets intimately. She'd walked them every day for 5 years. Cade pulled into an alley behind an abandoned warehouse. When he cut the engine, the silence was deafening. We'll stay here for now, he said. It's not much, but it's shelter. Sarah carried Lily inside while Cade checked for security risks. The warehouse was exactly as run down as it looked from outside, concrete floors, broken windows, graffiti on the walls. Nothing like the palace. But they were alive. They were together. That had to be enough. The first week was hell. Lily didn't understand why they couldn't go home. She asked every day, her small face confused and scared. Sarah did her best to make it an adventure. They told stories, played games with whatever they could find, made meals out of canned food Cade bought from corner stores. But it was hard. Harder than Sarah had expected. Not just because of the conditions, but because she was trapped in close quarters with Cade. No servants to run interference. No separate wings of the palace. Just the 3 of them in a small space, forced together by necessity. She watched him change. On the 3rd day, Cade tried to use his alpha authority on a group of Omega wolves who'd approached them suspiciously. The command rolled off them like water. Here, in Omega territory, pack hierarchy meant nothing. These wolves had spent their lives being dominated by alphas. They'd built up resistance, learned to push back. Cade had looked stunned. They just ignored me, he'd said later, staring at his hands like they'd betrayed him. Welcome to being an Omega, Sarah had replied coldly. Over the following days, she watched him observe how Omegas lived. The way they shared what little they had. The way they protected each other because no one else would. The way they'd built their own community outside the pack's formal structure. The way they survived despite the system he upheld. One night, Sarah found him sitting outside the warehouse, staring at the run-down buildings with an expression of dawning horror. You grew up here, he said quietly. Before you came to the palace. Yes. And after I rejected you, you came back. I had nowhere else to go. Cade's jaw clenched. The system I've been upholding my entire life, it created this. It keeps Omegas trapped in poverty while Alphas live in luxury. I never saw it before. I never. He looked at her, his eyes haunted. How did you survive? Because I had to. Sarah sat beside him, maintaining distance between them. Because I had a daughter who needed me. Because I'm stronger than you ever gave me credit for. I know that now. His voice was barely a whisper. God, Sarah, I'm so sorry. She didn't answer. Sorry wasn't enough to erase 6 years of struggle. But she didn't move away from him either. As days turned into a week, small moments of intimacy crept in despite her resistance. Cade's hand brushing hers as they passed food. The way he positioned himself between her and the door at night, always protecting. The soft conversations they had after Lily fell asleep, sharing pieces of themselves they'd never revealed before. Sarah felt the mate bond pulling at her, stronger now that they were close. She could feel his emotions, regret, determination, fierce protectiveness, and underneath it all, love. Desperate, aching love. It terrified her. On the 8th day, they had a visitor. Marcus knocked on the warehouse door just after sunset. Cade's former beta, stripped of his rank, looking haggard and desperate. Your Majesty, Marcus said, bowing deeply. Thank God I found you. I've been searching for days. Cade's eyes narrowed. How did you know where to look? I know this territory. I used to patrol here before. He trailed off, the shame of his dismissal evident. I have information. About Shadow Fawn's movements. Sarah's instincts screamed danger, but Cade let Marcus in. They huddled around a map Marcus had brought, showing troop movements and patrol patterns. Darius Stone is mobilizing, Marcus explained. He knows about the Silver Wolf. Celeste told him everything, where you are, what the child can do, how to capture her. How do you know this? Sarah asked suspiciously. Marcus's eyes slid away from hers. I have contacts. People who owe me favors. Something was wrong. Sarah could feel it in her gut, that new silver wolf instinct screaming at her. But before she could voice her concerns, Marcus continued. There's a safe house. On the border of neutral territory. If we move now, we can get there before Shadow Fawn realizes you've left Omega territory. Cade studied the map. Show me. Marcus pointed to a location. Here. 2 hours drive. We'll be safe there while we plan our next move. Cade nodded slowly. All right. We leave in 10 minutes. As Marcus stepped outside to check the perimeter, Sarah grabbed Cade's arm. Something's wrong, she whispered urgently. I can feel it. We shouldn't trust him. He's my former beta. He's loyal. You stripped him of his rank. You humiliated him in front of the entire pack. Sarah's grip tightened. He has every reason to betray you. Cade's expression was troubled, but he shook his head. Marcus has served my family for 20 years. He wouldn't. A howl cut through the night. Not one howl. Dozens. Shadow Fawn wolves. They'd been surrounded. It's a trap, Sarah breathed, horror flooding through her. Cade's face went white. He spun toward the door just as it burst open. But instead of Marcus coming to warn them, they saw the former beta standing outside, surrounded by Shadow Fawn warriors. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, Marcus called out. But you took everything from me. My rank. My honor. My family's legacy. When you dismissed me for allowing my mate to speak her mind, you destroyed generations of loyal service over one mistake. Marcus, please, Cade started. I gave Celeste the information she needed. I told her about the Omega Wing schedules, about the child's room, about security protocols. And when she fled, I made sure Shadow Fawn knew exactly where to find you. Marcus's voice was cold. You rejected tradition. You rejected the values that built this pack. And now you'll pay the price. Shadow Fawn wolves rushed the warehouse. Cade shifted instantly, his massive black wolf form exploding outward. He threw himself at the attackers, protecting Sarah and Lily with savage ferocity. Sarah grabbed Lily, backing toward the far wall. Her own wolf surged forward, silver light bursting from her eyes. She'd never fought before. Never had to. But her silver wolf instincts kicked in, and power flooded through her. The first wolf that lunged at her was thrown back by an invisible force. The second burst into silver flames that didn't burn but paralyzed. Her power was wild, untrained, but devastating. Cade fought like a demon, taking down wolf after wolf. But there were too many. Shadow Fawn had brought an army. Then Sarah saw the gun. One of the Shadow Fawn wolves, in human form, standing behind the others, raised a pistol. Silver bullets. Fatal to werewolves. Impossible to survive. The gun was aimed at Sarah. Everything slowed down. She saw the finger tighten on the trigger. Saw the bullet leave the chamber. Knew she couldn't dodge fast enough, not while holding Lily. Then Cade was there. He shifted mid-leap, his human body taking the impact as the silver bullet slammed into his chest. No! Sarah's scream tore through the night. Cade hit the ground hard. Blood bloomed across his shirt, spreading rapidly. Silver poisoning, racing through his system. Sarah felt it through the mate bond, the sudden, agonizing pain. The way his life force started flickering. The bond between them beginning to sever as death reached for him. Cade. She dropped beside him, Lily crying in her arms. No, no, no. His eyes found hers. Gold fading to amber. Protect our daughter. Then his eyes closed. And Sarah felt the mate bond start to die. Chapter 6. Time stopped. Sarah knelt in the blood-soaked warehouse floor, watching the life drain from Cade's body. The silver bullet had lodged deep in his chest, right above his heart. Silver poisoning was spreading through his veins like black lightning, visible beneath his skin. He was dying. She could feel it through the mate bond, that damaged, fragile connection between them that had survived 6 years of rejection and pain. It was unraveling now, thread by thread, as his heart struggled to beat. Around them, shadow fawn wolves circled like vultures. They'd stopped attacking the moment Cade went down, sensing victory. Marcus stood among them, his face carefully blank, refusing to meet Sarah's eyes. Mommy? Lily's small voice was terrified. What's wrong with Daddy? Daddy. She'd only just started calling him that. Only just begun to accept him as her father. And now he was dying in front of her. He's hurt, baby, Sarah whispered, her voice breaking. He's hurt really bad. Silver wolf instinct surged through her, and suddenly she knew with absolute certainty, what she could do to save him. The mate bond. If she completed it, marked him as hers, the bond's power could fight the silver poisoning. Could give him the strength to survive. But marking him meant accepting him. Forgiving him. Binding her fate to his forever. It meant opening herself up to the man who'd shattered her heart 6 years ago. The man who'd rejected her, thrown her away, let her struggle alone. The man who'd only come back when it was convenient for him. Could she do that? Could she let go of the anger that had sustained her through years of poverty and pain? Please, Cade's voice was barely a whisper. His eyes cracked open, amber and fading. Sarah, run. Take Lily. Get out of here. Even dying, he was trying to protect them. He won't make it, one of the shadow fawn wolves said with satisfaction. Silver bullet to the heart. The Alpha King is finished. Good, Marcus's voice was cold. He destroyed himself the moment he chose an Omega over duty. Sarah's hands were shaking. Cade's blood was warm and sticky on her palms. The mate bond was unraveling faster now, each severed thread sending agony through her chest. 6 years. She'd spent 6 years hating him. Building walls. Protecting herself from ever being hurt like that again. But beneath the anger, beneath the walls, her wolf had never stopped grieving. Had never stopped mourning the loss of their mate. Had spent every day aching for the bond that should have been complete, whole, unbroken. She'd never stopped loving him. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Despite everything, the rejection, the pain, the struggle, some part of her had always loved Cade Blackthorn. Had always known he was hers, even when he denied it. Mommy, please. Lily was crying now, her small hands pulling at Sarah's arm. Please save Daddy. You can heal. I saw you heal me. Please, Mommy, please. Sarah looked down at her daughter's tear-stained face. At the desperate hope in those amber eyes, Cade's eyes. Then she looked at Cade, dying on the warehouse floor. The mate who'd broken her. The father who'd given them a daughter. The man who'd chosen them when it finally mattered. The man she'd never stopped loving, even when she'd wanted to. Damn you, she whispered. Damn you for making me love you. Then she lowered her head to his neck. The marking was instinctual. Her wolf knew exactly what to do, even though she'd never done this before. Her canines lengthened, and she bit down on the juncture where his shoulder met his neck, the traditional marking spot. Power exploded between them. The mate bond, damaged and frayed, suddenly blazed with light. Silver light that poured from Sarah into Cade, flooding through their connection with the force of a dam breaking. Cade's eyes flew open, glowing pure gold. His back arched off the ground as the bond completed from her side, and Sarah felt everything, all his pain, his regret, his desperate love for her that he'd buried for 6 years. Felt the moment the silver poisoning started to retreat, driven back by the sheer power of the mate bond. But it wasn't enough. The bond was still damaged from the rejection. He needed to mark her back, to complete it fully. Cade, she gasped, pulling back. Her canines were still extended, blood, his blood, on her lips. Mark me. You have to mark me back. His eyes found hers, clear now, full of wonder and agony and love. Sarah. Do it. She angled her neck, bearing the marking spot. Do it now before it's too late. Cade didn't hesitate. Even wounded, even dying, he had enough strength for this. He pulled her down, his teeth finding her neck, and bit. The world exploded into silver light. Sarah screamed as power unlike anything she'd ever felt surged through her body. The mate bond completed, snapping into place with such force that she felt it in her bones. Every cell of her body was alight with power, with connection, with the overwhelming sensation of being whole for the first time in her life. Her silver wolf fully awakened. It wasn't a gentle awakening. It was violent, explosive, absolute. Power burst from her in waves, and the shadow fawn wolves were thrown backward by an invisible force. The warehouse walls cracked. The ground beneath them trembled. And through it all, she felt Cade. Not just emotionally, but completely. His thoughts. His feelings. His soul intertwined with hers in a way that made them two halves of one whole. The silver poisoning in his chest was burning away, destroyed by the power of their completed bond. The bullet was being pushed out of his body, his tissue knitting itself back together at an impossible rate. He was healing. They both were. The rejection's damage, the 6 years of separation, the pain and grief, all of it was being washed away by the sheer force of the bond finally being what it was meant to be. Complete. When the light finally faded, they were lying in each other's arms, breathing hard, their foreheads pressed together. Around them, the shadow fawn wolves had fled. Even Marcus was gone, having run when the power became too much. Mommy? Daddy? Lily's small voice broke through the haze. Are you okay? Sarah sat up slowly, still dizzy from the power. Cade was beside her, the wound in his chest completely healed. Only a silver scar remained, marking where the bullet had been. He was alive. They were bonded. And Sarah could feel his emotions as clearly as her own, relief, joy, overwhelming love, and underneath it all, bone-deep shame for what he'd put her through. I'm sorry, he whispered, his voice raw. Sarah, I'm so goddamn sorry. For all of it. For being too weak to fight for you. For letting the council manipulate me. For 6 years of. She kissed him. It was the first time she'd kissed him since that night 6 years ago. And it felt like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Sarah saw tears on Cade's face. I don't forgive you, she said quietly. Not completely. Not yet. But I choose you. I choose us. I choose to try. That's all I'm asking for. Cade's hand cupped her face like she was something precious. A chance to prove I'm worthy of you. To be the mate and father I should have been from the start. A soft voice interrupted them. The bond is complete. They both spun around. An elderly woman stood in the warehouse entrance, ancient, her skin weathered like old parchment, her eyes a stunning silver that seemed to glow in the darkness. Who? Cade started, moving protectively in front of Sarah and Lily. Peace, Alpha King. The woman raised her hands. I am Mira Silvermoon, priestess of the moon goddess. I've been watching over Sarah since birth. Sarah's breath caught. Watching over me? You're not just any silver wolf, child. Mira moved closer, and Sarah saw she was dressed in ancient robes, marked with symbols of the moon goddess. You are the last descendant of the original silver bloodline. The direct line from the moon goddess herself. The revelation hit like a thunderbolt. That's impossible, Sarah whispered. I'm an Omega. I was born to Omega parents. You were hidden among Omegas to protect you. Myra's expression was sad. Your true parents were the last mated pair of the silver bloodline. They died protecting you from those who wanted to eradicate your kind forever. I took you to an Omega family, cast a spell to suppress your power until you were old enough to survive awakening. Until you found your true mate. Sarah's mind was reeling. Everything she'd believed about herself was a lie. She wasn't a weak Omega who'd somehow birthed a powerful child. She was Silver Wolf royalty, hidden and protected, waiting for this moment. The prophecy, Cade breathed. When the king rejects the silver moon. You weren't just a silver wolf. You were the silver moon. The one destined to stand beside the blackthorn throne. And you rejected her, Mira said, her voice sharp with disapproval. Nearly destroyed both bloodlines in your arrogance. But the moon goddess is merciful. She gave you a daughter to bring you back together. Gave you a second chance. Cade's arms tightened around Sarah. I won't waste it. I swear to you, to the moon goddess, to everyone, I will spend the rest of my life making this right. Pretty words, Mira said. But words mean nothing without action. What will you do, Alpha King? How will you prove yourself worthy of the silver moon? Cade looked at Sarah, and she saw the determination in his eyes. Whatever she asks of me. Sarah's mind was spinning, but one thing was crystal clear. The Omega system. The way our pack treats the lowest-ranked wolves. It has to change. The council won't allow, Cade started. I don't care what the council allows. Sarah's voice was steel. I lived in that system, Cade. I raised our daughter in poverty because of it. I watched good wolves suffer because they were deemed too weak to matter. If you want me as your Luna, if you want us to rule together, that system ends. Now. Cade didn't hesitate. Done. We'll restructure everything. Equal rights for all pack members, regardless of rank. Resources distributed fairly. An end to the hierarchy that keeps Omegas oppressed. The council will fight you. Then I'll replace the council. His eyes blazed gold. I'm done letting tradition and fear dictate my choices. I'm done being the king they wanted instead of the king I should be. Sarah felt his conviction through the bond. He meant it. Every word. Then I'll stand with you, she said. As your mate. As your Luna. As your equal. Cade kissed her forehead, and the gesture was so tender it made her chest ache. You've always been my equal. I was just too blind to see it. Mira smiled for the first time. The moon goddess will be pleased. The silver bloodline lives on, and the prophecy moves toward its true completion. But be warned, the darkness has already risen. The path ahead will test you both. Let it test us, Cade said. We'll face it together. Mira nodded and began to fade like mist. Return to your pack, Alpha King. Your throne awaits. But so does betrayal. Then she was gone. Sarah looked at Cade. We need to go back. To the palace. Make this official. Are you sure? Cade searched her face. After everything. I'm sure. Sarah's hand found his. Lily deserves to grow up acknowledged, protected, honored. And our pack deserves better than the system we've let stand for too long. It's time to change everything. Cade pulled both her and Lily into his arms. Together. Together, Sarah echoed. They arrived at the palace just after dawn. The drive back had been tense, all of them on high alert for Shadow Fang ambushes. But the roads were clear. Too clear. Something's wrong, Sarah said as the palace gates came into view. It's too quiet. Cade's jaw tightened. Agreed. As they pulled up to the main entrance, they saw why. Shadow Fang banners hung from the palace walls. No, Cade breathed, horror flooding his face. The doors burst open, and Shadow Fang warriors poured out, surrounding their car. Behind them, walking with regal confidence, was Celeste. But she wasn't dressed as a lady anymore. She wore the ceremonial robes of a Luna. A crown sat on her dark hair. "Welcome home, Cade," she said, her smile poisonous. "So glad you could make it to my coronation." Cade was out of the car in an instant, shifting partially, eyes gold, claws extended. "What have you done?" "What you were too weak to do. I've allied our pack with Shadow Fang. Darius Stone and I are to be married, uniting our territories under one rule." Celeste's eyes were cold. "You abandoned your pack to chase after an Omega whore and her bastard. The council declared you unfit to rule. I've been named Queen Regent in your absence. The council doesn't have that authority." "The council you've been ignoring? The one you plan to dismantle?" Celeste laughed. "They were more than happy to support me when I promised to maintain tradition. To keep the hierarchy intact. To protect their power." Sarah felt rage building inside her. This woman had staged a coup, sold out their pack to their enemies, and now stood there gloating about it. "Where's my beta?" Cade demanded. "My guards? The wolves loyal to me? Imprisoned or dead? Your choice, really." Celeste's smile widened. "You have no power here anymore, Cade. No authority. No throne. You're just a fallen alpha with delusions of relevance." "I'm still the Alpha King." "Not anymore." Celeste's expression turned vicious. "But I'll make you a deal. Your life for hers." She gestured, and Shadow Fang warriors dragged someone forward. Sarah's blood turned to ice. It was Lily. Her daughter was in chains, silver chains, that were burning her small wrists. She was crying, terrified, calling for her parents. "Lily." Sarah lunged forward, but Shadow Fang wolves blocked her path. "The child is sentenced to death," Celeste announced. "Execution by silver poisoning at sunset. The warrant is already signed." "You can't," Cade's voice was desperate. "She's a child. She's an abomination. A silver wolf that threatens the natural order." Celeste's eyes gleamed with triumph. "But I'm feeling merciful. I'll give you a choice, Sarah." Sarah's wolf was howling, trying to break free. Silver light was beginning to leak from her eyes. "Let her go. Surrender yourself to Darius Stone. Give him your bloodline, your power, your complete obedience. Become his weapon, his tool, his slave." Celeste's smile was cruel. "Do that, and I'll let your daughter live. Refuse, and I slit her throat right here, right now." She pulled out a silver knife, pressing it to Lily's neck. Lily screamed. "No." Sarah's power exploded outward, but Shadow Fang warriors were ready. They had silver nets, weapons designed specifically to contain silver wolves. They threw them over Sarah, and the silver burned, suppressing her power. "Choose," Celeste said. "Your freedom or your daughter's life. Your bloodline enslaved to Shadow Fang or watching your child die. What's it going to be, Silver Moon?" Sarah looked at Lily, then at Cade. Through the mate bond, she felt his desperation, his rage, his absolute refusal to let either of them be taken. But what choice did they have? Lily was in chains. The palace was controlled by their enemies. They were surrounded by warriors with silver weapons. They'd walked into a trap. And now Celeste held all the cards. 5 seconds, Celeste said, pressing the knife harder. A thin line of blood appeared on Lily's neck. 4. 3. Wait. Sarah's voice cracked. Wait. I'll do it. I'll surrender. Just don't hurt her. No. Cade grabbed her arm. Sarah, you can't. She's our daughter. Sarah looked at him, tears streaming down her face. I'd give anything to keep her safe. Even this. Celeste's smile was triumphant. Wise choice. Darius will be so pleased to. She never finished the sentence. Because Sarah's eyes blazed pure silver, brighter than they'd ever been before. And when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of the moon goddess herself. You want my bloodline, Celeste? You want my power? Sarah's bonds began to crack, silver burning away like paper in fire. Then let me show you what you've really unleashed. The mate bond flared between her and Cade, their combined power creating a shockwave that knocked every Shadow Fang warrior off their feet. The final battle was about to begin. And the silver moon was done being merciful. Chapter 7. The silver bonds cracked and fell away from Sarah like broken glass. She stood in the palace courtyard, power radiating from her invisible waves of moonlight. Every Shadow Fang warrior who'd been standing took a step back. Even Celeste's triumphant smile faltered. You want my bloodline? Sarah's voice echoed with otherworldly power. You want to see what the silver moon can do? Sarah. Cade's voice was urgent in her mind, the mate bond allowing them to communicate silently now. Don't reveal everything. Not yet. We need the element of surprise. She felt his plan flowing through the bond. Saw his strategy as clearly as if it were her own. He would challenge Darius to alpha combat, ancient law that couldn't be refused. Single combat between alphas for the right to rule. While everyone was focused on that fight, Sarah would slip away and rescue Lily. It was risky. Dangerous. But it was the only chance they had. You're right, Sarah said aloud, letting her power bank down to a simmer instead of an inferno. She met Celeste's eyes. I'll surrender. But not to you. If Shadow Fang wants me, then Darius Stone himself has to claim me. Those are my terms. Celeste's eyes narrowed with suspicion, but before she could respond, a deep voice cut through the courtyard. I accept. Darius Stone stepped through the palace doors. He was massive, easily 6.5 feet tall, built like a warrior, with scars crisscrossing his arms and face. His eyes were a cold, predatory yellow. He radiated power and brutality in equal measure. Behind him, more Shadow Fang warriors filed in. Dozens of them. The palace was completely occupied. The Silver Wolf herself, Darius said, looking at Sarah like she was a prize to be won. I've heard so much about you. About what you can do. What you will do, once you're mine. I'll never be yours, Sarah spat. We'll see. Darius's smile was cruel. Then his eyes shifted to Cade. And the fallen Alpha King. How touching. Coming back to watch your mate be claimed by a real alpha. Cade's entire body went rigid. Gold flooded his eyes, and Sarah felt his wolf surging forward, ready to tear Darius apart. I challenge you, Cade said, his voice carrying across the courtyard. Alpha combat. For the right to rule this pack and claim my mate. The courtyard went silent. Alpha combat was ancient law. Sacred law. Once challenged, an alpha had to accept or forfeit all authority. And the fight was to the death. Darius's smile widened. You're challenging me? You, who abandoned your pack to chase after an Omega whore. That Omega is worth more than your entire pack combined, Cade shot back. And if you want her, you'll have to kill me first. Gladly. Darius gestured, and his warriors formed a circle in the courtyard. The traditional combat ring. Let's give the pack a show. Let them watch their precious Alpha King die. Cade, Sarah started, fear spiking through the bond. Trust me, he sent back. Just get to Lily. I'll handle Darius. He's stronger than he should be. I can feel dark magic on him. I know. But I have something he doesn't. Cade's love poured through the bond. I have you. Our completed bond makes me stronger than I've ever been. Sarah wanted to argue, to stop him, to fight beside him. But Lily was still in chains, still in danger. Their daughter had to come first. The pack was gathering now. Word had spread quickly, and wolves were flooding into the courtyard from all directions. Some looked relieved to see Cade. Others looked uncertain, fearful. A few looked openly hostile. The coup had divided their loyalty. People of Silvermoon Pack. Darius's voice boomed. Your Alpha King abandoned you. Left you vulnerable. But I'm here now, united with your new queen, he gestured to Celeste, to bring strength and order back to this pack. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Others looked away. But Cade Blackthorn refuses to accept the new order, Darius continued. He challenges me for the right to rule. So we'll settle this the old way. Alpha combat. And when I win, this pack becomes part of Shadow Fong territory. Your futures will be secured under my protection. And when I win, Cade called out, stepping into the combat ring, every Shadow Fong wolf leaves our territory. Celeste answers for treason. And this pack remains sovereign. The crowd was growing. Hundreds of pack members now, pressing in to watch. Sarah used the chaos to edge toward the palace entrance. She needed to find where they were holding Lily. Through the bond, she felt Cade's focus sharpen. Felt him reaching for the power of their completed mate bond, letting it flood through him. The fight began. Darius shifted first, a massive gray wolf, easily twice the size of a normal alpha. Dark magic swirled around him like smoke, making him even larger, more powerful. Cade shifted a heartbeat later. His black wolf was smaller but faster, moving with lethal grace. They collided in a clash of fangs and fury. Sarah ran. The palace interior was crawling with Shadow Fong guards, but Sarah moved through the corridors like a ghost. Her silver wolf powers were growing by the minute, and she found she could sense where people were, could move silently, could make herself nearly invisible to wolves not actively looking for her. She followed the mate bond to Lily, could feel her daughter's fear like a beacon, pulling her forward. The throne room. They were keeping Lily in the throne room. Sarah burst through the doors to find her daughter chained to the throne itself, silver manacles on her wrists and ankles. Lily's face was tear-streaked, her small body trembling. Mommy. Lily's voice was hoarse from crying. Sarah rushed forward, and slammed into an invisible barrier. She hit it hard enough to knock the wind from her lungs, silver light sparking where she'd made contact. Did you really think it would be that easy? Celeste stepped out from behind the throne, and Sarah's breath caught. The woman had changed. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural red light. Dark veins spiderwebbed across her skin. Her fingernails had lengthened into claws, and when she smiled, her teeth were pointed. What did you do to yourself? Sarah breathed. I made a deal, Celeste said. Darius offered me real power. Not the fake authority of being a Luna, but actual strength. He turned me into a hybrid, wolf and something else. Something darker. She flexed her hands, and dark magic crackled around her fingers. I'm stronger than any pure wolf now. Strong enough to defeat even a silver wolf. You sold your soul. I sold my limitations. Celeste's expression twisted with bitterness. Do you know what it's like? Being groomed your whole life to be the perfect Luna, only to watch an Omega take your place? Being told you're Alpha Blood elite, only to realize you're still not good enough? Sarah felt a flicker of sympathy. Celeste. Don't. Celeste's voice was sharp. Don't you dare pity me. You won. You got the mate, the power, the happy ending. All I got was this. She gestured to her corrupted form. So yes, I made a deal with darkness. Because darkness was the only thing that wanted me. The barrier shimmered between them. Behind Celeste, Lily whimpered. Let her go, Sarah said. Please. She's just a child. She's a silver wolf. The most powerful creature in our world. Celeste's eyes gleamed with dark light. And Darius needs her blood for the ritual. Needs to sacrifice her under the blood moon to steal her power for himself. Horror flooded through Sarah. What ritual? Tonight is the blood moon. Rare. Sacred. The perfect time to transfer silver wolf power from one host to another. Celeste stepped closer to the barrier. Darius will kill your daughter and take her abilities for himself. He'll become the first male silver wolf in history. Unstoppable. Over my dead body. That can be arranged. Celeste's claws extended further. Let's see if the silver moon is all she's cracked up to be. She shattered the barrier with a gesture, and dark magic flooded the throne room. Sarah's silver wolf surged forward to meet her. The battle was brutal. Celeste moved with inhuman speed, her hybrid nature making her faster and stronger than any normal wolf. Dark magic whipped around her like living shadows, lashing at Sarah, trying to bind her. But Sarah's power was ancient. Pure. She met each attack with silver light that burned away the darkness, that pushed back against the corruption. They crashed through the throne room, destroying furniture, cracking marble pillars. Sarah fought desperately, trying to reach Lily, but Celeste kept getting in her way. You can't win. Celeste screamed, unleashing a massive wave of dark energy. I've become something beyond wolves. Beyond your precious silver bloodline. The dark magic hit Sarah full force, and pain exploded through her body. It was trying to corrupt her, to taint her power with darkness. She could feel it seeping into her veins, could feel her silver wolf recoiling from the wrongness of it. But then she felt something else. Through the mate bond, Cade's strength poured into her. Not just his power, but his love. His faith in her. His absolute conviction that she was strong enough to win this. And she felt something more, compassion. Looking at Celeste, twisted and corrupted by dark magic, Sarah didn't see an enemy. She saw a woman who'd been broken by the same system that had nearly destroyed Sarah. A woman who'd been told she was only valuable for her bloodline, her ability to produce heirs, her willingness to be a perfect ornament on the Alpha's arm. The same system Sarah had vowed to dismantle. I'm sorry, Sarah said, her voice cutting through Celeste's rage. I'm sorry the pack failed you. I'm sorry you felt like darkness was your only option. Celeste froze, shock flickering across her corrupted features. But this isn't you, Sarah continued, letting her power shift from offensive to healing. Silver light, warm and pure, began to flow from her hands. The darkness is controlling you, Celeste. Let me help you break free. I don't want your help. Celeste lunged, claws extended. Sarah didn't dodge. She caught Celeste's wrists and held on, even as those claws dug into her flesh. Held on and poured healing light directly into the other woman. Celeste screamed. The dark magic fought back, writhing and hissing like a living thing. But Sarah's compassion was stronger than corruption. Her determination to save rather than destroy gave her power that pure combat never could. The darkness began to burn away. Sarah could see the moment Celeste's own will reasserted itself. Could see her fighting the dark magic from the inside, using Sarah's light as a weapon against the corruption that had taken root in her soul. Together, they shattered the dark bond. Celeste collapsed, gasping. The red glow faded from her eyes. The dark veins receded. She looked up at Sarah with her own eyes, shocked, ashamed, and free. You saved me, she whispered. Why? Because the system that broke you is the same one that broke me, Sarah said. And I won't perpetuate it. Not even with my enemies. Tears streamed down Celeste's face. Darius, the ritual, he's going to kill Lily tonight. During the blood moon. He's been planning it for months. He needs silver wolf blood to complete his transformation. When? Where? Midnight. In the old temple ruins on the eastern border. That's where the ritual site is. Celeste grabbed Sarah's hand. But there's more. Cade can't beat him. Darius has been consuming dark magic for years. He's stronger than any normal alpha could ever be. He'll kill Cade in that ring. Fear shot through Sarah. Through the bond, she could feel Cade fighting, could feel him being pushed back by Darius's unnatural strength. Mommy. Lily's voice reminded Sarah what mattered most. She rushed to her daughter, and her power shattered the silver chains like they were made of paper. Lily threw herself into Sarah's arms, sobbing. I've got you, baby. You're safe now. We have to help Daddy, Lily whimpered. The bad man is hurting him. Sarah could feel it through the bond. Cade was losing. Come on. Sarah lifted Lily, looking at Celeste. Can you fight? Celeste stood on shaky legs. I'll try. They ran back to the courtyard together. The combat ring was soaked in blood. Cade was on the ground, his black wolf form battered and bleeding. Darius stood over him, his massive gray wolf barely winded. Around them, the pack watched in horrified silence. Any last words, Alpha King? Darius's human voice came from his wolf form, a sign of unnatural power. Any final speeches about honor and duty? Cade struggled to rise, but his legs gave out. Through the bond, Sarah felt his pain, his desperation, his grief that he was about to fail his pack, his mate, his daughter. No. Sarah's voice cut across the courtyard. No last words. Because he's not dying today. Every head turned. The pack gasped to see her standing there, Lily in her arms, silver light radiating from her eyes. And behind her, the palace doors burst open. Eleanor Blackthorn walked out, and she was glowing. Not with dark magic like Darius. Not with the corrupted power of a hybrid like Celeste had been. But with pure, ancient, silver light. Grandmother? Cade's voice was weak with shock. Hello, grandson. Eleanor's voice carried power that made even Darius pause. Did you think you were the only one with secrets? She stepped into the courtyard, and her form shifted. Not into a wolf, but into something else, something ancient and powerful. Silver light surrounded her like armor, and when she spoke, her voice echoed with the authority of centuries. I am Eleanor Blackthorn, last guardian of the silver bloodline before Sarah, she announced. I orchestrated the prophecy. Tested you, Cade, to see if you were worthy of the silver moon. You failed the first test by rejecting her. But you passed the second by choosing her above all else. The pack was stunned into silence. 3 generations of silver wolf power, Eleanor continued, moving to stand beside Sarah. Grandmother, mother, and child. Do you really think your corrupted magic can stand against that, Darius Stone? Darius snarled, but Sarah could see uncertainty in his eyes now. Lily reached out from Sarah's arms, and her small hand glowed silver. Grandma Eleanor? Yes, little one. I'm here. Eleanor's hand joined Lily's, and then Sarah added her own. 3 generations. 3 sources of power. All connected by blood and love and the blessing of the moon goddess herself. Silver light exploded across the courtyard, forming a massive shield that covered the entire pack. Every silver moon wolf within its radius felt the warmth, the protection, the promise that they would be safe. And Darius felt it too, felt the sheer power of what he was facing. You can't have her, Sarah said, her voice carrying across the courtyard. You can't have my daughter, my pack, or my mate. This ends now. Cade rose, and Sarah felt her power flowing through the bond into him. Felt Eleanor's power joining hers, 3 generations of silver wolf strength filling the Alpha King until he blazed with moonlight. When Cade shifted back to human form, he was healed. Stronger than before. Fueled by the completed mate bond and the power of his family. Round 2, Cade said, his eyes pure gold and silver mixed. Let's finish this. Darius realized too late that he'd lost. The fight was quick and brutal. Cade, powered by the mate bond and silver wolf strength, moved faster than Darius could track. The dark magic that had made Darius so strong couldn't stand against the pure power flowing through Cade. Within minutes, Cade had Darius on the ground, his jaws at the larger wolf's throat. "Mercy," Darius gasped, shifting back to human form. "I yield." "Alpha's mercy." "You showed no mercy to my daughter," Cade said coldly. "You planned to sacrifice her. To steal her power. Why should I show you anything different?" "Cade." Sarah's voice, soft through the bond. "You're not him. You're better than this." Cade hesitated, and Sarah felt his internal struggle. The part of him that wanted revenge. And the part that wanted to be worthy of her. He chose mercy. "Leave," Cade commanded, releasing Darius. "Take your Shadow Fang wolves and leave our territory. If you ever threaten my family again, there will be no mercy." "Understood." Darius scrambled backward, humiliated but alive. "This isn't over." "Yes," Eleanor's voice rang out. "It is. The prophecy is complete. The silver moon stands beside the blackthorn throne. Darkness has been defeated. Get out before I change my grandson's mind." Darius fled. His warriors followed, streaming out of the palace, out of the territory, beaten and broken. The pack erupted into cheers. Victory. They'd won. Sarah sagged with relief, holding Lily close. Cade rushed to them, pulling them both into his arms. Through the bond, she felt his joy, his love, his overwhelming gratitude that they'd survived. "It's over," he whispered into her hair. "It's finally over." But even as he said it, Sarah felt something wrong. The blood moon was rising. She could feel it pulling at her power, at Lily's power. Could feel dark magic stirring in the air. "The ritual," she gasped. Celeste said midnight. "The blood moon ritual." "Darius is gone," Cade said. "He can't perform it now. But someone else could." Eleanor's face had gone pale. "If they have the ritual components. If they know the words. Someone else could activate it." A scream tore through the courtyard. Lily's scream. Sarah looked down to see her daughter's body going rigid, her eyes rolling back. Silver light was being pulled from her invisible streams, yanked towards something in the distance. "No." Sarah tried to hold on to Lily, but the pull was too strong. Lily was being lifted into the air, pulled toward the eastern border where Celeste had said the ritual site was. A dark vortex had opened in the sky. Red and black and wrong, it swirled like a wound in reality itself. And it was pulling Lily toward it, trying to consume her soul, her power, her very essence. Someone had activated the blood moon ritual. And Lily was being sacrificed. "Lily." Sarah's scream echoed with power, but she couldn't stop it. Couldn't break whatever dark magic had been unleashed. Her daughter was being pulled into darkness, and Sarah couldn't reach her. The victory had been a trap. And the real battle was just beginning. Chapter 8. The vortex pulled at Lily with relentless force, dragging her small body through the air toward the swirling darkness. Her screams tore through Sarah's heart. "The ritual site." Eleanor shouted over the chaos. "Someone activated it remotely. They're using Lily's blood signature from when she was captured." Sarah watched her daughter being pulled higher, silver light streaming from her body into the vortex. Lily was being drained. Consumed. The ritual was feeding on her power, her life force, her very soul. "How do we stop it?" Cade's voice was desperate. "We can't." Eleanor's face was ashen. Once a blood moon ritual is activated, it requires a silver wolf sacrifice. There's no way to break it without. She stopped, her eyes widening with horror as she looked at Sarah. Sarah already understood. She could feel it in her bones, in her newly awakened silver wolf instincts. The ritual demanded a sacrifice. A silver wolf for a silver wolf. It didn't have to be Lily. No. Cade's voice was sharp. He'd felt her realization through the mate bond. No, Sarah. Don't even think it. She's our daughter. Sarah's voice was calm, even as her heart was breaking. I'd give anything for her. Even this. I won't lose you again. Cade grabbed her arms, his eyes wild with panic. We just got each other back. The bond is complete. We have a future together. You can't. I can. Sarah touched his face, and tears streamed down her cheeks. I have to. Look at her, Cade. She's dying. Lily's screams had faded to whimpers. Her small body was going limp, silver light dimming as the vortex drained her. There has to be another way, Cade's voice broke. There isn't. Sarah kissed him, pouring all her love through the bond. 6 years of longing. 3 months of healing. A lifetime of what could have been. Take care of our daughter. Change the pack. Be the king I know you can be. Sarah, please. But she was already running. Silver light exploded from Sarah's body as she launched herself into the air. She felt Cade's anguish through the bond, felt him trying to follow, but Eleanor held him back with surprising strength. Sarah reached Lily just as her daughter's eyes started to close. I've got you, baby, Sarah whispered, wrapping her arms around Lily's small form. Mommy's got you. Then she looked up at the vortex, at the swirling darkness that demanded a silver wolf's life, and made her choice. She threw Lily down toward Cade with all her strength. Used her power to propel her daughter away from the vortex, away from the ritual's pull. Cade caught Lily, collapsing to his knees as their daughter fell into his arms. And Sarah let the vortex take her instead. The darkness swallowed her whole. The vortex was cold. Empty. Wrong. Sarah felt the ritual's magic clawing at her, trying to drain her power, her life, her essence. Dark tendrils wrapped around her, pulling at the silver light that made her what she was. She didn't fight it. She'd made her choice. Lily would live. That was all that mattered. Through the mate bond, she felt Cade's anguish. Felt him screaming her name, felt his desperate attempts to reach her. But the bond was fading now, growing weaker as the ritual drained her life away. I'm sorry, she whispered, knowing he could probably still hear her. I love you. I've always loved you. The darkness pressed closer. Sarah closed her eyes, accepting her fate. Then light exploded through the vortex. Not the dark red of the blood moon ritual. Not even the silver of her own power. Pure white light, brilliant as the sun, warm as summer, ancient as time itself. A figure formed in the light. She was beautiful beyond description. Her hair flowed like liquid moonlight. Her eyes held the depth of eternity. Power radiated from her in waves that made Sarah's silver wolf strength look like a candle next to the sun. The moon goddess. Sarah Winters. The goddess's voice was everywhere and nowhere, gentle as a whisper and powerful as thunder. Silver moon. Last daughter of my chosen bloodline. Sarah couldn't speak. Couldn't move. Could only stare in awe. Do you know why I brought you here? The goddess asked. To complete the ritual? Sarah managed. To sacrifice myself for my daughter? No, child. The goddess smiled, and it was like watching stars being born. To test you one final time. The darkness of the vortex was fading now, replaced by the goddess's light. Sarah could breathe again, could feel her power returning. I don't understand, Sarah whispered. The prophecy. The goddess moved closer, and Sarah felt warmth wash over her. Everyone interpreted it as a warning. When an Omega stands beside the throne, the bloodline will fall to ruin. They thought it meant destruction. Didn't it? No. The goddess's eyes were kind. It meant transformation. The old bloodline, built on hierarchy, oppression, and fear, needed to fall to ruin. Needed to be destroyed so something better could rise in its place. Sarah's breath caught. The Omega system. Yes. For centuries, my wolves have built their society on the belief that some are inherently worth more than others. That alphas deserve power while omegas deserve nothing. That strength is measured in dominance rather than compassion. The goddess's voice grew sad. That was never my intention. I blessed all wolves equally. But you've corrupted my gift with your hierarchies. And I was supposed to change that, Sarah realized. An Omega Luna. Someone who'd experienced the oppression firsthand. Someone who would fight to dismantle it. Someone who would prove that true strength lies not in domination, but in sacrifice. Not in taking, but in giving. Not in power over others, but in lifting others up. The goddess touched Sarah's face. You offered your life for your daughter without hesitation. You showed mercy to your enemy when you could have killed her. You chose compassion over vengeance, love over fear. That is the strength I seek in my chosen bloodline. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. But I failed so many times. I was angry. Bitter. I hated Cade for years. And you had every right to. The goddess's voice was fierce. Anger at injustice is not weakness. Fighting for yourself is not selfishness. You survived, Sarah. You protected your daughter. You built a life from nothing. That took more strength than any alpha has ever shown. So the prophecy was about me all along? About you and Cade. About whether he would choose duty or love. Power or compassion. The old ways or transformation. The goddess smiled. He chose you. Finally, after many mistakes, he chose you. And in doing so, he chose a better future for all my wolves. The light around them was growing brighter. Sarah could feel power flowing into her, not just her own silver wolf strength returning, but something more. Something vast and ancient. What's happening? She asked. I'm giving you what you've earned. The full blessing of the silver bloodline, uncorrupted by dark magic or fear. The goddess's hands glowed as she touched Sarah's heart. You will be the silver moon in truth. Not just powerful, but wise. Not just strong, but compassionate. A Luna who will lead with love rather than fear. And Lily? Your daughter will be greater still. The goddess's smile was radiant. She carries the bloodline of both her parents, your compassion and her father's strength. She will grow to unite all packs, to heal the divisions that have plagued my wolves for centuries. She is the future, Sarah. The Alpha Queen who will rule not through domination, but through understanding. Sarah's heart felt like it would burst. She'll be safe. She'll be protected. Trained. Loved. The goddess began to fade, her light merging with Sarah's own. Now go back to your family. Go back and build the future I've dreamed of for my wolves. The silver moon rises, Sarah. And with it, a new era begins. The light became blinding. And then Sarah was falling. She emerged from the vortex like a shooting star. Silver light radiated from every inch of her body, so bright the entire pack had to shield their eyes. She floated down slowly, power crackling around her like living lightning. The vortex collapsed behind her, the dark ritual broken. The blood moon faded, returning to its normal pale glow. Sarah's feet touched the ground, and the earth itself seemed to sigh with relief. Sarah. Cade's voice was hoarse. He was staring at her like she was a miracle. She turned to him, and his breath caught. Her eyes were pure silver now, glowing with the goddess's blessing. Her hair floated around her as if underwater. She looked otherworldly. Divine. But when she smiled, it was just her. Just the woman he loved. I'm okay, she said. We're okay. Then Lily was in her arms, crying and laughing and holding on to her mother like she'd never let go. You came back, Lily sobbed. Mommy, you came back. Always, baby. I'll always come back to you. Cade joined them, wrapping his arms around both his mate and daughter. Through the bond, Sarah felt his overwhelming relief, his love, his wonder at what she'd become. The moon goddess, Sarah told them softly. She spoke to me. Explained everything. The prophecy was never about destruction. It was about transformation. Then let's transform everything, Cade said, his voice fierce. Let's build the world we want for our daughter. Sarah looked past them to the gathered pack. Hundreds of wolves staring at her in awe. Some in fear. Some in hope. Together, she said. We do it together. 3 months later. The coronation ceremony was unlike any Luna crowning in the pack's history. For one thing, it was held not in the formal throne room, but in the central square where all pack members, regardless of rank, could attend. For another, the traditional council of Alpha Blood elders had been disbanded, replaced by a representative council with wolves from every rank. Including Omegas. Sarah stood before her pack, wearing the ceremonial robes of Luna. But she'd had them modified. Instead of the heavy, restrictive design that spoke of ornament and possession, her robes were practical, beautiful, and allowed her to move freely. She was a Luna who would work alongside her people, not rule above them. Cade stood beside her, his hand in hers, and together they faced their pack. 3 months ago, our pack almost fell to darkness, Cade said, his voice carrying across the square. We almost lost everything because we'd built our society on fear and oppression. Because we believed strength meant dominating others. But we were wrong, Sarah continued. True strength lies in lifting each other up. In protecting the vulnerable. In ensuring every wolf, regardless of their rank, has value and voice. She gestured to the new council. Among the members were former Omegas, including Sarah, a woman who'd helped Sarah during her years in Omega territory. There were also mid-ranked wolves, a few alphas who'd supported reform, and Eleanor Blackthorn, representing the wisdom of the old guard who'd chosen to embrace change. Marcus was there too. The former beta had spent the past 3 months working tirelessly to make amends, documenting the old system's abuses and helping design reforms. He'd publicly apologized to Sarah and Lily, his shame evident but his commitment to change genuine. Starting today, the Omega designation is abolished, Cade announced, and the crowd erupted. All wolves are equal members of this pack. Resources will be distributed fairly. Employment and housing will be based on need and merit, not rank. And any wolf who abuses another will answer to the full council, not just to those with power. This is the pack we're building, Sarah said. One based on compassion, not cruelty. On justice, not hierarchy. On love, not fear. The ceremony continued with the traditional crowning, but even that had been modified. Instead of Cade placing the Luna crown on Sarah's head in a gesture of ownership, they crowned each other, symbolic of partnership, not possession. When Sarah's crown settled on her head, silver light pulsed from it. A sign of the moon goddess's blessing. The pack howled their approval, and the sound echoed across the territory like thunder. After the ceremony, there was celebrating. Food and music. Wolves dancing and laughing regardless of their former ranks. Sarah found Victoria in the crowd. The woman who'd once mocked Lily so viciously now stood with her head bowed. Luna, Victoria said quietly. I owe you an apology. Several apologies. What I did to you and your daughter, there's no excuse. Sarah studied her for a long moment. You're right. There isn't. Victoria flinched. But, Sarah continued, I believe in second chances. I believe people can change if they're willing to do the work. Are you willing? Yes. Victoria's voice was fervent. I've spent 3 months volunteering in the former Omega districts, trying to make amends. I've apologized to every family I hurt. I'm trying to be better. Then you're welcome here, Sarah said simply. But if you backslide, if you hurt anyone under my protection again, there will be consequences. Understood? Understood, Luna. Not everyone was as contrite. Several former council members and high-ranking wolves had refused to accept the changes. They'd been given a choice, adapt or leave. Most had chosen to leave, taking their prejudices to other packs. Sarah didn't mourn their loss. Her pack was better without them. Celeste had left too, but not in anger. The woman had spent weeks recovering from the dark magic corruption, and when she finally left, it was with tears and apologies. "I need to find out who I am without power or status defining me," Celeste had said. "Maybe I'll come back someday. Maybe I won't. But thank you for giving me the choice." Sarah had hugged her, surprising them both. "Good luck. I hope you find your path." Now, 3 months later, the pack was thriving. Children played without the shadow of rank hanging over them. Former Omegas were finding jobs, homes, purpose. The territory was healing. And Lily was flourishing. Sarah watched her daughter playing with a group of pups, including several who'd been called fatherless, like Lily had. But things were different now. Those fathers had stepped up, inspired by their Alpha King's example. The stigma was fading. "Mommy. Daddy." Lily ran over, something clutched in her hands. "Look what I made." It was a card. Handmade, covered in glitter and hearts. Father's Day was coming again, a year since this whole journey had started. "Is this for your father?" Sarah asked, her heart full. "Yes." Lily beamed. "For Daddy. Because he's the best daddy ever." Cade knelt down, accepting the card with tears in his eyes. "Thank you, little moon. I love it. I love you. I love you too, Daddy." Lily hugged him fiercely, then ran back to play with her friends. Sarah and Cade stood together, watching their daughter laugh and play in safety and love. "1 year ago, she was being mocked in that gymnasium," Sarah said softly. "Now look at her. Happy. Protected. Surrounded by friends." "1 year ago, I was an idiot who didn't know what he had," Cade replied. "Now." He turned to her, his eyes full of love. "Now I have everything. Not quite everything." Sarah took his hand and placed it on her stomach. "There's more coming." Cade froze. "Sarah, are you pregnant? With twins?" She smiled at his shocked expression. "The pack doctor confirmed it yesterday. 2 more little ones. A boy and a girl, from what they can tell." Cade's face went through about 6 different emotions before landing on pure joy. He picked her up and spun her around, laughing, and the sound drew attention from the pack. "We're having twins," he announced to everyone nearby. The pack erupted in howls of celebration. Music started up again. Someone brought out wine. Eleanor approached, her eyes twinkling. "More silver wolves in the world. The goddess is generous. Will you help train them?" Sarah asked. "When they're old enough?" "It would be my honor." Eleanor hugged them both. "You've done well, both of you. The pack is healing. The prophecy is fulfilled. And the future looks bright." As the sun set and the moon rose, silver and beautiful, Sarah stood in Cade's arms, surrounded by their pack, and felt complete. The journey had been painful. The transformation had nearly destroyed them. But they'd emerged stronger, wiser, and ready to build a better world for their children. The silver moon had risen. And a new era had begun. Epilogue. Far from the silver moon pack territory, in shadows that even moonlight couldn't penetrate, a figure watched. They'd been watching for months. Observing. Planning. Waiting for the right moment. The silver bloodline had risen. The prophecy was fulfilled. The packs would begin to change, inspired by what Sarah and Cade had built. But prophecies were tricky things. Open to interpretation. Subject to manipulation. The figure smiled in the darkness. "The silver bloodline has risen," they whispered. "The game's first move is complete. Now, let the real game begin." They turned away from the territory, melting back into shadows. Behind them, in the silver moon pack, Sarah suddenly shivered. A premonition. A warning. Through the mate bond, Cade felt it too. What's wrong? I don't know. Sarah looked toward the eastern horizon, where shadows seemed darker than they should be. Something's coming. Something bigger than what we've faced. Then we'll face it together. Cade pulled her close. Whatever comes next, we face it as mates. As Luna and Alpha. As partners. Sarah nodded, but the unease remained. The silver moon had risen, yes. The old ways had fallen. The pack was healing. But somewhere in the darkness, something ancient and powerful had noticed. And it was watching. Waiting. Planning. The prophecy might be fulfilled, but the story was far from over. It was only just beginning. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share and subscribe for more.